My sister demanded I be her surrogate, then faked an application. Now she's pregnant, but the shocking truth changed everything. I never expected to share this on Reddit, but life has a way of surprising you. I'm Sarah, 28F, and my life turned upside down around 6 months ago. It all began when my sister, Angelina, 32F, revealed her pregnancy. Angelina and I have always had a difficult connection. We grew up 4 years apart, so we were never in the same stage of life at the same time. Angelina was always the ideal child, all A's, leader of the debate team, and first chair violin in the school orchestra. In contrast, I was a more free-spirited individual. I fared well in school, but I was more interested in computers and programming. Our parents, particularly our mother, always seemed to prefer Angelina. They would attend all of her recitals and debates, but they were sometimes unable to attend my coding competitions. This caused a schism between us that only widened as we grew older. When Angelina met Tom, 34M, in college, it appeared that her ideal life was complete. They married shortly after college, and everyone expected them to begin a family immediately away. But years passed and no baby arrived. Angelina never said much about it, but I could see it bothered her. Meanwhile, I concentrated on my career. I became a software developer, got a terrific job at a tech firm, and purchased my own apartment. I was content with my life, even though it was not the usual route my parents had envisioned for me. So when Angelina announced her pregnancy, I was ecstatic for her. I hoped that this would finally bring us closer as sisters, but then Angelina dropped the bombshell. I was going to be the surrogate mother. Not asked, told. I was shocked. Angelina and I were not close enough for her to believe I would do something like this. We only communicated once a month, and it was generally simply to catch up on the basics. So for her to simply believe I'd carry her baby was mind-boggling. When I tried to tell her I was uncomfortable with the notion, she dismissed it. "Oh, come on, Sarah," she said. "It's not a big deal. You're not using your uterus right now anyway." I couldn't believe what I heard. Not using my uterus? Was she serious? I tried to explain that becoming a surrogate was a big decision that would impact my body, employment, and life for at least 9 months. But Angelina would not listen. She continued saying how she and Tom had been trying for so long, how this was their final opportunity, and how I was being selfish by not wanting to help. Things worsened when our parents became involved. Mom, 56F, and Dad, 58M, agreed with Angelina, as usual. They began phoning me every day, reminding me how important family is and that I should be willing to do everything for my sister. Dad went further. "Sarah, this is your chance to finally do something meaningful with your life." That hurt. I have a fantastic career, my own house, and a life I'm proud of, but none of that matters now since I refuse to be an incubator for my sister. It felt like I was back in high school, constantly compared to Angelina and left lacking. The pressure continued increasing. Angelina began telling her extended family and acquaintances about her wonderful sister, who would be her surrogate. She even mentioned it on Facebook before I committed to anything. Suddenly, I began receiving letters from relatives, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all congratulating me for my selflessness. I attempted to correct the record, but Angelina had already spun her story. Anyone I told the truth to either didn't believe me or thought I was overly theatrical. "It's just 9 months, they'd say. "Don't you want your sister to be happy?" But it was more than just 9 months. It was my body, profession, and life. I had recently been promoted to lead developer on a significant project at work. How was I meant to handle it while pregnant? What about the health hazards and possible long-term repercussions on my body? Nobody appeared to care about any of this. The final straw came at a family supper. Angelina had asked everyone around to celebrate her imminent surrogacy. I hadn't agreed to anything, but she pretended it was a done deal. As we sat around the table, she began discussing her nursery ideas and her excitement for me to begin hormone therapy. I could not handle it anymore. I stood up and told them the truth. I stated that I had never consented to be a surrogate, that Angelina had lied to everyone, and that I was tired of being bullied and guilted into doing something I did not want to do. The room became quiet. Then all hell broke loose. Angelina erupted into sobs, claiming that I was spoiling her one opportunity at parenthood. Mom and Dad began yelling at me, calling me selfish and callous. Tom merely sat there, looking uneasy. I left the dinner feeling wild. Was I actually the bad guy here? Was I being selfish by refusing to give up my body and life for 9 months? I didn't think so, but my family appeared to think differently. Since that night, things have been strained. Angelina isn't speaking with me. Mom and Dad keep sending guilt-inducing voicemail messages. Even some of my friends have been strange about it, saying things like, "Well, if it was my sister, I'd do it." I'm standing my ground, but it's tough. I feel like I'm losing my family over this, but I also can't believe they're putting so much pressure on me. It's my body, so I get to choose, right? The whole issue has brought back a lot of childhood memories. The continual comparison to Angelina, the sensation that nothing I do is ever good enough for my parents. I thought I'd moved on from that, but the surrogacy turmoil has brought it all back to the surface. I tried talking to Angelina one-on-one in the hopes that she would comprehend my point of view, but she refused to listen. She repeatedly says, "You've always been selfish, and you've never cared about anyone but yourself." It's as if she is rewriting our entire history to fit this narrative in which I'm the terrible person. Tom has been strangely quiet during this affair. When I tried to talk to him about it, he simply said it was between Angelina and me. But shouldn't he have a say over who bears his child? His lack of involvement has me skeptical, but I can't put my finger on why. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to yield just to end the drama, but I know that is not the appropriate motivation to become a surrogate. Another part of me wants to cut ties with everyone and start over somewhere else. I've been considering shifting to my company's office in another city just to get away from it all. But is running away truly the solution? And what if Angelina tries to carry out this surrogacy plan with someone else? Should I warn them? I suppose I'm writing this to test whether I'm nuts. Am I wrong for refusing to be my sister's surrogate? How do I deal with this circumstance without losing my family completely? Any help would be greatly appreciated, as I now feel like I'm drowning in family drama with no way out. Update. It has been 3 weeks since my last article, and the issue has become even more convoluted. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments on my first post. Your encouragement and guidance made me feel less insane about the entire thing. I took your advice to heart and chose to stand my ground. I told my family that I would not be a surrogate, no matter how hard they pressed me. For a while, things were too calm. Last week, I received a call from a number I did not know. When I replied, it was a woman claiming to represent a surrogacy agency. She began discussing how they had received my application and were eager to move on with the process. I was confused at first, then frightened when I realized what had happened. Angelina had filed a surrogacy application in my name. She had taken my personal information, forged my signature, and even submitted medical records that she had obtained in some way. I was furious. This wasn't simply crossing a boundary, it was identity theft. I immediately called the agency back and explained the situation. They were understanding, but suggested that I make a police report to protect myself. I was torn. Filing a police report might land Angelina in significant legal danger. At the same moment, she committed an illegal act and violated my privacy severely. I recalled all the instances in our youth when Angelina got away with something because I didn't want to get her in trouble. Like when she shattered Mom's favorite vase and blamed it on me, or when she stole my car in college and got into an accident. After much thinking, I decided to submit the report. It was not an easy decision, but I felt compelled to protect myself. What if Angelina did something like this again? The fallout was swift and severe. Angelina called me, shouting that I was attempting to ruin her life. Mom and Dad were outraged, telling me that I was ripping the family apart. Even Tom, who had generally been silent throughout the episode, left me a furious voicemail. But this is where things become even more difficult. Remember how I mentioned that Angelina and Tom had been trying to have a baby for years? Well, there's a reason behind that. A common buddy contacted me after hearing about the police report. She told me something I didn't know. Tom had a vasectomy years before he met Angelina. This discovery hit me hard, not only because it meant Angelina had been lying about their fertility issues, but also because it reminded me of when Angelina and Tom initially started dating years earlier. I overheard a chat between them at a family cookout. Tom had mentioned that he did not want children, and Angelina concurred, stating she was also unsure about motherhood. I hadn't given it much attention at the time, but it suddenly felt significant. Tom apparently did not desire children. He told Angelina this when they first started dating, and she stated she was fine with it. However, as the years passed, Angelina got enamored with the prospect of having a baby. She began pressing Tom, who eventually agreed to consider adoption or surrogacy to make her happy. This new information led me to doubt everything. Why was Angelina so desperate for a baby when she had previously been content with not having children? And why go to such measures to make me a surrogate when you could simply adopt or locate a willing surrogate through normal channels? I wasn't sure what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to face Angelina and reveal all her falsehoods. But another part of me felt bad for her. Was she so desperate for a baby that she would engage in such deception? In the end, I opted to speak with Tom first. I met him for coffee and told him everything, including Angelina's falsehoods, the surrogacy push, and what a mutual acquaintance had told me. Tom was shocked. He stated that he had agreed to Angelina's surrogacy plan because he felt it would make her happy, but he was unaware of the magnitude of her deception. As we talked, Tom opened up about his own marital troubles. He admitted that he and Angelina had been having troubles for years, primarily due to their disagreement about having children. He stated he had pondered leaving several times but stayed because he loved Angelina and hoped she would alter her mind about having children. Tom seemed shocked as he exited our meeting. I felt awful for him, but also relieved that the truth was finally being revealed. I wondered whether this would be the push he needed to finally confront Angelina and possibly end their marriage. As for Angelina and my parents, I'm still unsure how to continue. The police are investigating the identity theft, and I'm concerned about what will happen to Angelina. Despite everything, she is still my sister. I keep remembering back to our youth, to the times when we truly got along. Like the summer we spent at our grandparents' farm, sitting up late to watch meteor showers and collecting fireflies in jars. It's difficult to reconcile those recollections with who Angelina has become. Mom and Dad are still not speaking with me. They believe I'm making things up to get out of being a surrogate. It aches, but I'm trying to be tough. I've begun seeing a therapist to help me cope with the stress and complex feelings that this scenario has brought up. I'm seriously considering moving out of state for a while to get away from all the turmoil. My employer has an office in another city and I'm considering requesting a transfer. The prospect of a fresh start is appealing, but I'm also concerned about running away from my troubles. So that's where things are now. My family is in tatters. My sister may be in legal problems, and I'm considering starting afresh in a different city. I didn't expect to be where I am now a month ago, but that is life. I'll keep everyone updated on what occurs next. Thank you again for all of your help. It means more than you realize. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my previous update, and just as I thought things couldn't be any more complicated, life threw me another curveball. First, let me catch you up on what has been happening. Angelina was charged with fraud following the identity theft incident. It was a misdemeanor, but she had to pay a fine and complete community service. Tom filed for divorce, unable to overcome Angelina's falsehoods about desiring children and the entire surrogacy disaster. I did in fact accept that transfer. I've been living in a different place for the past month, attempting to rebuild my life away from all of the family pain. It's been challenging but also refreshing. I've found some new acquaintances, put myself into work, and even begun seeing a therapist to deal with the stress of the last several months. But this is when things take a surprising turn. My mom called me last week. My parents had not spoken to me since the police report, so I was startled to hear from her. I almost did not respond, but something told me I should. When I picked up, my mother was in tears. She managed to tell me about Angelina's pregnancy despite her cries. Naturally, I was perplexed. How could Angelina be pregnant if Tom had a vasectomy and they were getting divorced? Well, it turns out that the baby is not Tom's. It isn't even biologically Angelina's. My mother eventually revealed the truth. Angelina had been lying about everything since the beginning. Angelina is not infertile. She never has been. The entire trying for years story was a pure lie. She wanted me to be a surrogate because she didn't want to go through the pregnancy herself. Apparently, Angelina has always been afraid of pregnancy and childbirth. This concern derives from a horrific occurrence she experienced as a teenager that I was unaware of. When Angelina was 16, she witnessed our cousin's difficult pregnancy and near-fatal birth. It had a lasting impression on her, instilling a strong fear of pregnancy. But Angelina too desperately wanted a baby. Or so she thought. When Tom told her he didn't want children, she saw it as an ideal chance she might play the needy, infertile wife and coerce someone else, me, into carrying a baby for her. But when her plan with me fell through, she panicked. She began seeing this person behind Tom's back. Let us call him Mike. Mike got her pregnant, and Angelina is suddenly confronted with the same situation she was attempting to avoid. I was speechless. All of our family's drama and pain sprang from Angelina's fear of being pregnant. It seemed too ludicrous to be true, but as my mother talked, more truths emerged. My parents stated that they had been aware of Angelina's pregnancy fear for many years. They agreed to her surrogacy idea because they believed it would help her overcome her fear. They never considered how it would affect me or how wrong it was to coerce someone into becoming a surrogate. I felt a mixture of emotions. Rage at the deception, relief that the truth had finally been revealed, and a strange sense of vindication. After months of being called selfish and callous, it turns out I was correct all along. My mother spent a long time apologizing. She and my father understood how horribly they had messed up and how unfairly they treated me. They asked whether I could forgive them. I informed her that I needed time to comprehend things. The realization that my entire family had been lying to me for months, if not years, was difficult to process. I replied that I'd think about it and get back to her. Angelina appears to be a hot mess. The pregnancy she worked so hard to avoid has become a reality. Tom refuses to take her back, and Mike wants nothing to do with the baby. She is alone, afraid, and finally confronting the repercussions of her choices. A part of me feels sad for her, but another is still outraged at all the agony she has caused. I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to have a connection with her again, but I'm trying to find faith in my heart that she'll get the care she needs. So that's where things are now. My family's web of falsehoods has finally unraveled, leaving us all to deal with the consequences. I'm still absorbing everything and trying to figure out how to proceed. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I do know this. I'm glad I kept my stand. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that you should always believe your instincts, even if everyone else tells you otherwise. The entire event has caused me to ponder on our family dynamics. Growing up, Angelina was always the golden child, while I was the black sheep. Now it appears that those roles have been flipped. It's an unusual sensation, and I'm not sure how to manage it. I've talked to my therapist about it all. She's guiding me through my feelings of betrayal and rage. It's a slow process, but I'm starting to see results. Regarding my job, the change has been a blessing. I'm working on an intriguing new project that keeps me occupied and diverted from the family drama. My new coworkers are wonderful, and I'm slowly beginning to feel like I belong here. I am still unsure how to proceed with my family. Part of me wants to forgive them and try to repair our connection. Another part of me is frightened of being harmed again. I keep thinking about how many times I've forgiven them only to see them revert back to their old ways. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I've informed my folks I need space, and they're surprisingly understanding. Angelina has tried to contact me several times, but I'm not ready to talk to her yet. I'll keep you updated if anything important happens, but for the time being, I'm focusing on healing and going forward with my life. Thank you for your continued support throughout this insane adventure. Update 3. It's been a half year since my last update, so I thought it was appropriate to share where things are now. A lot has changed, and while not everything is perfect, I believe I'm now in a decent place. First, the major news. Angelina gave birth to a little girl around 2 months ago. Despite her anxieties, the pregnancy and birth went well. According to what I've heard, she is adjusting to motherhood better than anyone expected. It appears that the reality of having a child has shifted her perspective on many issues. I wasn't present at the birth, but my parents kept me updated. They sent me images of the baby, and I must admit, she's lovely. It's weird to believe I have a niece now, especially with everything that has transpired. My relationship with my family is difficult. After reflecting on everything, I decided to give my parents the opportunity to make amends. We've had many lengthy, challenging discussions on trust, respect, and boundaries. They have apologized several times and appear to sincerely grasp how bad their acts were. We are gradually restoring our relationship, but it is not the same as before. I'm more careful and guarded now, but I'm also proud of myself for establishing and maintaining clear boundaries. My parents understand that if they try to manipulate or pressure me again, I will not hesitate to cut them off altogether. My friendship with Angelina remains strained. I've seen her and the infant several times, always with other family members present. It's awkward and stressful, but we're respectful. Angelina has apologized for her behavior, but I'm not quite ready to forgive her yet. The loss of confidence was massive and it will take a long time to recover, if it ever does. Angelina is struggling as a single mother, but she is receiving support from our parents and attending treatment to address her worries and difficulties. She has even formed a support group for ladies suffering from tocophobia, fear of pregnancy and childbirth. It's encouraging to see her take measures to confront her issues, even if it's too late to reverse the damage she's created. On a personal note, I am doing great. I've opted to stay in the new city. I've created a life here that I am content with. My career is going well, and I've made some amazing friends. I've even begun seeing someone. It's early days, but it feels nice to be progressing. The entire surrogacy drama feels like a distant nightmare now. Looking back, I can't believe how insane things went. But I'm glad I had the experience. It taught me a lot about sticking up for myself, setting boundaries, and refusing to compromise my values, even when it was painful. I've also learned a lot about forgiveness, both offering and receiving it. It's not easy, and it won't happen tomorrow, but it is doable. I'm still working on forgiving Angelina, but I've discovered that hanging on to my resentment only harms me in the long term. My therapist has been quite helpful in guiding me through all of this. We've started looking into my childhood experiences and how they've influenced my relationships with my family. It's been eye-opening to see how many of our current problems derive from long-standing patterns. One of the most difficult obstacles has been learning to accept my parents and Angelina as flawed individuals rather than the larger-than-life figures they were while I was growing up. It's a process, but I'm getting there. I've also been attempting to establish a support system outside of my family. My new friends here have been fantastic, providing support and understanding without judgment. It made me realize how much I was missing by constantly prioritizing my family. So that is where things stand right now. My family is slowly recuperating, but we will never be the same as before. I'm creating a life I enjoy on my own terms, and most importantly, I'm content with my choices. To anyone in a similar circumstance, stay firm, believe your instincts, and don't let anyone pressure you into doing something you're not comfortable with, even if they're family. Always make your own decisions about your body. Thank you for your continued support along this journey. Your advice and encouragement benefited me more than you realize. I am not sure if I will update again, but I wanted to let you know that I'm okay, better than fine. I'm thriving. My ex-wife came back after 5 years of divorce, asking for a second chance after abandoning our kids for a new lover. For context, my ex-wife Angela, 36, and I, 37, met in our mid-20s. I was about 24 and we met while working at the same firm. We married after 2 years of dating, and we had 2 kids, who are now 9 and 7 years old. The second pregnancy was unexpected, and she was unhappy with it, but she did not terminate it, even though I assured her it was fine if she did. I didn't want to make her go through anything she didn't want. Following our first daughter, everything was still going well between us, and we were as in love as ever, but that changed following our second pregnancy. Angela became extremely angry and nasty, constantly picking on me or our eldest. I assumed it was just hormones and attempted to reconcile with this new version of her. We expected things to improve over time, but things deteriorated, and my daughter and I learned to tread carefully around her. Angela was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was taking care of everything. She had stopped her career due to personal ambition after our first child, and she handled all of the housekeeping and cared for our eldest while I worked. However, once she became pregnant with our second child, we had to employ a housekeeper since she said she was too fatigued to perform the housekeeping and care for the children. Despite the fact that it was outside of our budget, I agreed to hire help because I did not want to inconvenience her during her pregnancy. I figured she'd go back to managing the house and the kids when our second daughter was born. To clarify, I was not one of those men who did nothing around the house. Despite my exhaustion, I always tried to help out at home after work. After the birth of our younger daughter, I expected Angela to recuperate in a few months, but several months passed with little improvement. She stayed unpleasant and irritable, refusing to do any housework. Instead, she would spend the day at home watching television. She didn't play with the kids or take them outside. Instead, she paid our neighbor to take them to the park on occasion. I didn't mean to sound resentful, but I was. I was working long hours to provide for our family, and she refused to perform even the bare minimum at home. It was becoming increasingly expensive to continue paying for the housekeeper, who was responsible for all of the cooking, cleaning, and other activities. I also had to pay for all of our other bills and save money for our daughter's future, which was becoming increasingly difficult because Angela refused to help in any way. After nearly 6 months since our younger daughter's birth, I recognized we couldn't keep on like this. I decided to speak to Angela. I expected it to be a difficult conversation, so I asked my parents to watch our girls for the day. When I sat Angela down, I told her that I understood she was fatigued from 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to help me out and collaborate with me. I stated that employing a housekeeper was becoming prohibitively expensive, and I needed her to uphold her promise to return to handling at least part of the domestic chores so that we could cut the cleaner's hours and save money. She immediately rejected the suggestion, claiming she was too busy babysitting the kids to do any cleaning. She advised me to start working more instead of creating excuses and blaming her for our financial position. I attempted to explain to her that I was already doing my best, but she needed to do hers as well if we were to have a successful marriage. I also stated how she wasn't really looking after the kids because they were sitting in front of the television with her for hours, something the housekeeper had casually remarked to me. This was a mistake. Angela lashed out, accusing me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She went on a tirade, saying she couldn't take being pushed around by me anymore and refused to be forced to do all the work while I did nothing but sit at a desk for a few hours each day. She blamed me for our financial issues, saying it was embarrassing that I had to beg her for help when I was supposed to be the man of the house. It was nonsensical, and she was grabbing for straws to make it appear that there was nothing wrong with her refusal to contribute. We got into a huge quarrel, in which she labeled me a loser for not being able to hire a maid, and I replied by calling her a lazy cow. I mentioned that our eldest daughter was terrified of Mom and that she was failing as a mother and wife. That remark really hit her, and she pushed me hard. I lost my equilibrium and fell on the coffee table, shattering the glass and injuring myself. I had to be brought to the emergency room, and Angela apologized and cried the entire time. Fortunately, my injuries were slight, but I could have been gravely injured. After that, I no longer trusted Angela and informed her she needed to move out. I didn't trust her around the kids, knowing she'd lose her temper with them as well. I requested my parents to look after our girls for a time, and Angela protested for a week, swearing she would never let anything like that happen again. But I simply couldn't trust her anymore. I was about to file for divorce, but Angela begged me for another opportunity. By the end of the week, we had decided that she would move in with her parents and begin therapy. Only once a medical professional determined that she was fit would I contemplate allowing her to return to live with us. It was obvious that something was wrong with her because happy individuals do not behave in that manner, but she was eager to work on improving, so I agreed to give her a chance. I also didn't want my girls to grow up without their mother, so I decided not to file for divorce straight away and to give our marriage another chance. We were also receiving marriage counseling while living separately. However, it was all for naught because she eventually cheated on me. My parents had moved in with me to help with my girls, while Angela remained with her folks. We attended weekly marriage counseling sessions and things appeared to be improving for a while. I also communicated with her therapist, who informed me that she was suffering from postpartum depression but was recovering. One of her symptoms was rage, which she had never felt before, but it spiraled out of control after she shoved me. That was a wake-up call to both of us. This continued on for over a year, and at the 6-month point, I let her visit our girls under my supervision. I was relieved to see that she was gradually returning to her old self. It finally seemed like our position was improving and that we could make it work. But then she abruptly quit attending our counseling sessions, with no explanation. She also stopped responding to me, but I was confident that she was making progress because her therapist kept me informed. It didn't make sense to me, and I tried to talk to her for weeks, but she just ignored me and said she needed time alone. Finally, after nearly 3 months of avoiding me, I decided to pay her a visit at her parents' home. I hadn't done it previously because her parents disliked me and blamed me, believing I was the one who drove their daughter insane and caused her to act out. Angela had informed me that it would be best if I did not see her while she was living with them since it would only cause more drama, the last thing we wanted. But I broke the norm and went anyway, because she had been behaving aloof and skipping counseling sessions. Even when she did show up, she appeared uninterested, and I couldn't figure out why. When I tried to talk to her in person, over the phone, or by text, she continued saying everything was okay, but her behavior indicated that she was hiding something. When I arrived at her parents' place, I anticipated her to be there, but she wasn't. When I asked where she was, her parents said they couldn't tell me and slammed the door in my face. I got awful feelings about it. I decided to phone Angela while standing in front of their house, but she did not answer. After a few attempts, I became increasingly paranoid, so I snuck around the home, hoping to discover a way in. I went to the backyard, knowing her parents normally kept the kitchen door open. But I didn't have to go that far. I spotted Angela seated on a swing in the garden, but she wasn't alone. She was kissing a man I didn't recognize. The image of that moment is ingrained in my mind since it was the most heinous experience of my life. I still remember it today. When the guy noticed me, he instantly pulled back, and by the time Angela turned around, I had begun walking back to my car. She caught up to me and tried to stop me, but I didn't listen. I was shocked. She attempted to grasp me, but I shrugged her off and warned her not to touch me. I got into my car and headed home. Once there, I blocked her on all platforms to keep her from explaining. I asked my parents to help me get a lawyer and told them what I had just observed. I did not see or hear from Angela until we had to meet with the court-appointed mediator to finalize our divorce settlement. By that point, I had essentially become a robot, only functioning for the benefit of my girls while emotionally shutting down. I felt nothing, not even when I learned that Angela was terminating her parental rights. She had decided she no longer wanted to be with us and instead wanted to be with the man I had seen her with. Let's call him Sean. He was her childhood buddy, and despite growing apart after high school, they reconnected when she returned to live with her parents. Apparently, she had fallen in love with him, and her parents were supportive, which explains why they had permitted her to make out with him in their garden despite the fact that she was married with 2 children. They had always wanted her to end up with Sean and were relieved she was finally choosing her happiness, as if she had ever done anything else. The divorce was a lengthy procedure. Despite her infidelity, Angela wished to qualify for alimony. It took time, but my lawyer and I worked hard to ensure she didn't receive anything in the divorce, which was understandable given that I had been the one paying for everything while she did nothing but watch television at home. It has been 5 years since the divorce was finalized, and we were successful in ensuring she walked away with nothing. The divorce months were the most difficult for me, but I knew I couldn't give up because I needed to care for my girls. They had nobody but me. My parents were extremely supportive, and I will never be able to express how grateful I am to them for being there while I balanced work and parenting. Now, 5 years later, I'm grateful for my divorce. Back then, it seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me, but I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't made that decision. Life has been good to me since then, and I'm in a much better place in every manner. We've moved into a larger house, I'm paid more, and I don't have to spend money on anyone other than myself and my girls. My parents live nearby and visit frequently, and I have friends that adore me. My daughters are as joyful as they can be. That's all a guy needs, and I'm grateful to the universe that everything is going well now. Or at least, it was until Angela reappeared a few days ago. The kids were in school, and I was about to leave for work when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw her standing outside with a boy beside her. He couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old, and I knew immediately he was Angela's son. I was still trying to process her unexpected entrance when she began crying. She explained that she came there to apologize and make things right. She informed me she was finally ready to be a family again and give our marriage a second try. I couldn't believe she was back after all these years, and she wanted to give our marriage another shot, as if it were her choosing. I made up my mind in less than a second. I closed the door and turned her away. I didn't want to become involved in whatever it was, but first I told her that this was no longer her family. I'd quit being her husband the day she cheated on me with Sean. The divorce was simply a legal duty, and she had freely relinquished custody of her girls, so she no longer had the right to refer to us as her family. After that, I closed the door and instructed her to go since I did not want her anywhere near my property. I was so upset that I wanted to cuss her out, but I resisted because of the small guy. I could hear her screaming outside my door for a few minutes but ignored it. I departed for work once I was confident that everything was in order. I tried not to think about it because doing so would weaken my determination, which I couldn't afford. I almost forgot Angela had come to my house, but as soon as I got home from work, my parents called and demanded an explanation for why I had sent her away. They informed me that Angela had contacted them after I had shut the door on her, and she was upset. My parents stated that they had given her my new address and instructed her to come visit me because she was in the process of divorcing Sean and now had an opportunity to make things right with me. They stated Angela contacted them around a month ago, and the reunion had been planned for quite some time. My parents believed it was time for me to think about my children because my daughters needed a mother, and no one was more qualified than Angela. So they thought she deserved another shot and instructed her where to locate me and what to say. I was enraged with them. It was not their place to forgive her or give her another chance without first asking if I was comfortable with it. It could have been much worse if the kids had been home. It was reckless of them to do anything like this. I told them off, but they refused to recognize their error. They reminded me that they had assisted me during my divorce by caring for the children, something they still do on occasion. They argued that while it was ultimately my decision, they had an equal right to determine what was best for the children, which I could not take away. I thought it was crazy that they believed that. At the end of the day, my daughters were mine and not theirs. While I respected them and will always be grateful for what they did during my divorce, it was not their place to reintroduce Angela into my life. We had a fight, and they informed me that I was the one who was acting selfishly by not giving Angela a second chance. They argued that they had done their due research and that she was a different woman who deserved to be a part of my girl's life. Even when I informed them that Angela had signed away her parental rights, they were angry that I believed they would ever endanger my girls or me. They accused me of wrecking their lives because I was too arrogant to acknowledge that my daughters needed their mother. It's been a few days, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't think I was wrong or selfish for not giving my ex-wife a second chance at motherhood. Update 1. About a week has passed since Angela arrived at my door with her son, and I recently learned the truth about her relationship with my parents. It's so upsetting that I don't know where to start, and I'm still trying to digest it myself. It's mind-boggling how they've all betrayed me without blinking an eye. Apparently, not only did my parents give her my new address, but they had been in communication with her all along. I had cut her out of my life after the divorce, but they hadn't because they thought she'd come around eventually. They didn't talk very often, maybe once a month, but it was enough to make me feel betrayed. Sean had made Angela sign up her rights after she was presented with divorce papers. He issued her an ultimatum: abandon her family and create a new life with him, or stay in contact with her children and battle for custody. However, battling for custody required leaving him behind. According to my parents, it was a difficult decision for her, but she ultimately chose Sean and created a new family with him over her current family. My parents told me that immediately after I filed for divorce, Angela called them and asked for their assistance in keeping in touch with her children covertly. She stated that both of us had backed her into a corner. She believed that if she battled for custody, she would be unable to see her children. I was fighting for full custody with supervised visiting rights, but Sean had told her to abandon her children completely. Even if she went up against him and battled for custody, Her chances of success were small given the circumstances of our divorce and her temper issues. Fighting felt like a waste of time and resources, as she risked losing Sean and custody of our girls if she went forward with it. That's when my folks stepped in. Angela visited with them privately and asked them to let her keep in touch with our daughters. She was aware that if she signed away her rights, she would forfeit any visitation rights. However, my parents would retain those rights, which they intended to exploit. They deceived me for years by meeting Angela with our daughters behind my back. They justified it by claiming that Angela's plight struck a chord with them and that they couldn't keep a mother away from her children. However, stabbing their own son in the back had no ill effects on their conscience. Whenever I left the kids at their house, my parents would invite Angela to spend time with them. My children never told me they were seeing their mother because my parents bribed them with presents and chocolates to remain silent. When I asked how they spent their time at their grandparents' place, my girls told me they played games with their grandparents and a friend. I'd always imagined they meant my parents' true friends. Apparently, my parents had told my daughters to refer to their mother as a friend, in case I questioned. I couldn't believe my girls had lied to me, but I forgive them because they are only children and have been influenced. When I found out the truth from my parents, I confronted my daughters, asking if they had met their mother behind my back. They started crying and said they couldn't tell me because God would punish them if they did. Angela and my parents must have instilled this terror in their minds, which explains their secrecy. I also felt like a terrible father for never asking my parents' friends who they were spending time with. It may have been someone considerably more deadly than Angela, and I might never have known. But now I am putting an end to it. I've already filed for a restraining order against each of them. I have written proof, since my parents explained everything to me via email a few days after our dispute. They expected the email to help me comprehend Angela's desire to remain a mother, but it only confirmed that everyone involved had been lying to me. It's also hilarious that Angela signed away her parental rights and had to see our children in secret, as if it were a crime, simply because Sean did not want her to have any contact with her previous family. He was supposed to be her one true love, but now they're getting divorced. They even have a son together, but Sean, according to my parents, no longer wants to be associated with either of them. He has a job offer and will be going away in a few months, but Angela does not want to leave because their son has begun kindergarten locally. That's why they've been battling for so long, and it all came to a climax 3 months ago when Sean informed her he'd had enough and was taking the job. This was supposed to make me feel terrible for Angela, but instead I believe justice has been done. I spoke with my lawyer, and the restraining order has been filed. My girls and I had a serious chat about everything, and I informed them that they would not be seeing their grandparents or mother for the time being. They appear to be fine with it, but we are going to therapy to work through it since I know it has been difficult for them and will likely continue to be, but it is over now. Update 2. Hello folks. Thank you very much for your care and support here. I am grateful that so many people have sent nice comments and blessings to my daughters. My parents and Angela have been served with restraining orders and are scheduled to appear in court in a few days. I'm not sure how they feel about any of this because I've blocked them on every conceivable platform. I've also instructed my pals not to contact them if they attempt to do so. I've also enhanced security around my property and have been working from home for a few days. I contacted my girls' school administration and notified them of the problem. Initially, I did not want to send them to school for a few days, but I did not want their education to suffer as a result of Angela and my parents. Teachers have been ordered to keep an eye on them and not allow anyone other than me to pick them up after school. I'm doing everything I can to keep them from getting to us, because I know they'll try. So far, so good, and I'm hopeful that once we receive the restraining order, they will continue to stay away. Update 3. Hello, this will be a brief update, but we received the restraining order for the next 5 years. All 3 of them must keep their distance from me and my daughters unless they want to suffer severe consequences. I'm still enforcing all of the security measures I've put in place since the last time I saw them. They appeared angry, and I don't want to jeopardize anything. My girls and I are attending regular family counseling sessions, and I believe we will make significant improvement in the coming months. We have already made significant progress. Honestly, all I want is for my girls to be happy. Please keep sending us your best wishes. We need them. Karen demands that her husband eat all the extra food she cooks after his weight loss. I, 37, male, and my wife, 35, are currently cooling down from an altercation in which I told her unequivocally that she needed to make less food in the future or I would continue to not eat it. The backstory is really basic and it does not jeopardize our marriage or cause any severe problems. As a basketball player, I'm getting older and my knees are giving out. At the end of lockdown, I weighed roughly 196 pounds and stood 5'9". I realized I needed to make a change and get back down to my pre-lockdown weight of around 163 pounds. Now, I'm down to 70 kilograms, and I'm pleased with my development. I intend to make this my new normal as I grow older. However, my wife isn't overjoyed. I've lost all of my weight, and there are no love handles for her to play with anymore. Most upsetting for her is that I don't eat as much as I used to. We rotate cooking tasks every day, and when it's my turn, I usually make just enough. But when she prepares, there's usually enough food to fill another dish. My wife is too small to eat it, and I'm now a guy who doesn't either. I always recommend that we save it for dinner the next day. I don't have breakfast, and lunch is provided by my employer. Time at work for a time, the leftovers soon ended up in the garbage, and she'd asked me to make something new instead. Although things have been mostly great, she does not hesitate to observe that men should be eating seconds or thirds. It's simply the Japanese way for her. She's Japanese, and we live in Japan. She remembers her father joyfully asking for seconds and thirds. She is becoming increasingly embarrassed that her spouse dislikes her cuisine, although I enjoy it. Her cooking is excellent, and I eat as much as I can when she prepares it. It's just that she earns too much. We've talked about her portion sizes, but it always comes down to letting her cook her way. This all boiled over earlier today when she asked if I wanted a second plate of excellent fried chicken, and I declined since I was just too full. She replied, "Are you going to throw away all of this chicken? That's incredibly wasteful." I knew I was responding incorrectly, but I still said, "You are wasting all of this chicken. I told you to prepare less food. I have been telling you for months. I don't see you eating the chicken either. You're the one wasting money and effort on extra food that I won't eat, and that won't change." She's now in bed after crying, and nothing I said helped her feel better. I'm downstairs writing this. I know my attitude was incorrect at the time, but have I been a jerk throughout this weight loss journey, or at least when it comes to my wife's cooking? Should I have just swallowed it up and eaten her entire meal? Comment 1, not a jerk. You've already said a lot about it. She should have to eat whatever leftovers she makes. Hopefully, this is not the case, but she could be unintentionally undermining your weight reduction. Comment 2, not a jerk. It is an Asian phenomenon. Food means love. I'm Chinese, and my mother regularly overcooks and then comments on all of our weights. It took almost 20 years and all of the kids moved out for her to finally cook less, or at least enough so that everyone was finished and there were no leftovers when we visited her. Simply tell your wife that you do not perceive food in the same manner. Food provides sustenance, and overeating is a dangerous habit. Excess weight at your age causes health concerns, and if she cares about you, she would not want that. Just keep repeating it while telling her that you still love her, even if you want to eat less of what she prepares. Parents forced me to cancel my engagement party for my golden child brother's graduation. Now they're mad because relatives chose my party. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Leon, 26M, who recently graduated from community college, I might add. About the same time, I became involved with Nina, 28F, my high school love. We have been together for 10 years, and it was about time that we made this official. 2 weeks ago, I proposed to her and decided to invite a party to our house honoring our engagement last weekend. 5 days after the invites were distributed, last night the party was hosted. The drama surrounding all of this has been so bizarre and chaotic that I have no idea how to make sense of it. It all began when I invited my close family. My parents and brother, who contacted me and demanded that I postpone this celebration. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why they would ask me to do such a thing. When I told them I wasn't going to, they informed me they had decided to throw my brother a celebration for his graduation. Naturally, it also occurred to be the day of my engagement party. Although they hadn't yet sent the invites, the same evening I sent mine they were intending to do so. Now, they said, at least one of us had to back off and allow the other honor their significant event. We share a family, hence two festivities on the same day would cause a lot of strife and we wanted nothing like that. The cards are out on the table. My family is not especially close. I get along with the rest of my family, but not with my parents or Leon. This is why they were not aware of the fact that I was organizing an engagement party on the same day they were scheduled to be celebrating a graduation. On rare occasions, like when we congratulated one another upon learning of his graduation and when they learned of my engagement, we do communicate. On birthdays and holidays, we wish each other well. But that is about it. It was therefore quite clear in my mind what I intended to do when they asked me to call off my engagement celebration for their day, and I said no right away. Though I mean not to discredit Leon, I believe his graduating from community college at 26 is not as significant as my engagement to Nina, the love of my life, with whom I have been with for the past 10 years. To be honest, right now I hardly give a damn about if I'm undercutting him. I had already sent out the invitations, so I made it quite plain to my parents that I was not going to postpone my event. Since they hadn't yet sent out their invites, they might postpone their thing if they so wanted. Though my parents were not delighted about it and neither was Leon, I thought it was a really decent proposition. Given my brother has always been the golden child, it was not unexpected they were behaving this way. Every small deed he accomplished growing up had to be honored. For example, I recall having this first-time emotion when I was just 7 years old as I knew that on my 5th birthday the celebration had been somewhat quiet. It had simply been my parents, a couple of their acquaintances, and a few of my neighborhood friends as my parents felt I wouldn't even remember the party when I grew up. On the other hand, when my brother was 5, they went all out and actually leased a space so they could throw him a themed party. All I got when I graduated middle school was a congratulation and a pat on the back. Leon had still another celebration after he finished middle school. It was the same when I started college, graduated from high school, and later on from college. I received no more than a few words of encouragement. I had sort of figured out after middle school that they preferred Leon far more than they did me. I thus started separating myself from them as soon as I graduated from high school and went out for college. Since they were still paying for my education bills, I did not cut them off entirely. But I sort of stopped talking to them as soon as I started a job. Every time I saw them, I was polite to them. But I neglected to maintain in touch and they neither expected me to. Neither of us objected to the circumstances. We had adjusted as we felt was suitable. Leon and I never got along either. We used to argue or dig at each other all the time growing up, and by the time we were in high school we had concluded that we would be better off not talking. To be honest, he is rather different from me and not in the nice sort of difference. My parents treated him right from his early years, which has made him spoiled, entitled and very bratty. Everyone who knows our family would agree, I believe, that he is not exactly the easiest person to be around. Though he was really the troublemaker in high school and nearly got expelled several times, my parents never appeared to have an issue with whatever he did. When he told them he wanted to join a firm a few of his buddies had founded with a revolutionary idea, graphic printed t-shirts for kids and teens, they said nothing at all. That's exciting. Basically, it did not go well. After it failed and he ended up squandering our parents' investment money, which he also received a free pass for, he decided he wanted to go to college. He had to stick to community college and earn a degree in business as his grades were insufficient for it and he had taken rather a few gap years. Now my parents asked me to call off my engagement party so they could celebrate his graduation. Anybody in my place would have done the same, hence there was nothing callous about what I was doing. My parents started acting on the phone as if I was the worst person on the planet for not postponing my party. They claimed that although they had always known I was against my brother, this was simply too much. Though I wanted no drama before my engagement party, I tried to reason with them. Unfortunately, there was simply no conversation with them. I became annoyed at last and told them they were free to have their party on the same day as mine, but I was not adjusting anything to fit Leon or her. I hanged then blocked them. Leon neither bothered to get in touch with me nor gave me an opportunity to discuss any of this. In any case, I did not hear from them for the next 4 days following our dispute. But from many of my relatives, I also learned that they had also gotten invited to Leon's graduation celebration, which fell on the same day my engagement party was taking place. They lacked direction on what to do. I refrained from saying anything for the first 2 days since I truly wanted to keep anyone from entering the conflict between my family and me. I respected that they chose this. It was their decision. I wouldn't worry if my family attended any gathering they desired. They were free to. Deep down, I would obviously be rather offended if a few people turned up for my party, but I couldn't make them do anything. 3 days ago, though, I discovered that my parents were following the exact reverse strategy. My cousin informed me that since I have been nothing but terrible to them, my parents reportedly had been advising everyone not to attend my engagement party. Apparently, they had accused me of hosting my engagement party on the same day they had decided to host my brother's graduation party for deliberate intent. After they told me about it, I chose to send invites on the same day for my party and totally stunned them even though they claimed they had been talking about this idea for a few weeks. I figured two could play this game if they were going to badmouth me since they were trying so very hard. Luckily, I didn't have to fabricate such falsehoods to make them look awful. I basically told everyone the truth. Saying that I knew my parents had most likely been trying to badmouth me and offering folks a very distorted view of things, I messaged everyone invited to the party. On the phone call the other day, I therefore recounted what we had discussed and informed them my version of events, that which was the truth. I also mentioned that from my early years, I had to cope with the reality that Leon always got celebrated regardless of his actions and that I had been cool with it thus far. But now it was unfair of my parents to expect me to postpone the celebration of my own accomplishments only to suit them and their golden kid. Now, if any of my family still chose to believe them over me, they were free to do so. But I would truly appreciate it if they did not bother to maintain in touch with me after that. It was a quite direct and to-the-point argument. Though most of my family merely texted me back to let me know they could understand where I was coming from and that they were on my side, I was somewhat worried about what the reaction to that would be. They had seen personally the kind of treatment I had gotten from my parents straight from my early years. Like a few of my cousins and some of my uncles and aunts who were on the younger side, my family members who belonged to the same generation as I were informed that they would be attending my celebration. Since most of them had RSVP'd, yes, Nina and I were really content. Last night we had an absolutely great time at the party. Surprisingly, almost everyone who had been invited turned there, and I don't even believe it presented a problem for any of them. People informed me they sensed something was wrong about what they were saying when they started getting messages from my parents and refused to believe I would do as underhanded as what they accused me of. I was glad people understood that I was not the type of person who purposefully organized a party on the same day as my brother, simply to take center stage. Furthermore, many people told me they were happy I was not caving in to my parents' expectations as I was right about how unfairly I had been treated all my life. Therefore, not only did I get to celebrate my engagement with my friends and relatives, but also I discovered that, with regard to my parents and brother, most of my family members shared my views. The celebration was generally rather successful, and until this morning I was quite content. My parents and Leon visited me right away when I woke up, the last person I wanted to see. I told them to go away and honestly had no intention of allowing them in when they started ringing the doorbell. My dad countered that they would not be leaving anywhere until they had a conversation with me and that they were here to talk to me. I wanted to contact the cops, but Nina persuaded me to just talk to them once and wrap things up once and for all. I thus decided to let them in, and my folks started throwing charges at me as soon as they did. Since I had only woken up a few minutes earlier, I was somewhat surprised and somewhat confused. Yet I had chosen to act since they were accusing me of being rather jealous of Leon. They revealed that hardly anyone had come up for their party, and even those who had showed up left within a few minutes after some polite small talk to be able to make it to my party. They claimed to have heard the message I had conveyed to our cousins. I said that although at first I did not want to do something like that, they had pushed my hand by trying to badmouth me and lie about me. Still, given their loud charges, it felt as though my remarks were not even audible. They thought I was doing all of this only to constantly monopolize the attention and out of jealousy of Leon. I was, they said, separating the family. I suppose Nina came to see after some time that she had no use in trying to hold a conversation with them as they were obviously not polite enough for that. She stepped in and stated she would phone the police should they not leave that very quickly. They left then, but they were still calling me a lot of nasty names. The window shook for a good few seconds when Leon even slammed the door of our house so forcefully as he closed it. Though I chose to let it go, I half-mindedly called him back to let him have it. Like Nina, I was fairly irate. We had blocked all of them, hence an hour after they left we got a message from an unidentified number, probably a friend or someone else's number they were using. The message indicated that although all we said and did, we were still family and that they were rather let down that I had decided to have my engagement party on the same day as Leon's celebration, as this was the one thing I could have let him have. They claimed they were merely attempting to provide a good picture of him, even if he was ashamed of his fact that he was already 26 years old upon graduating from college. Besides that, his company had recently failed a few years ago, so he had little reason to rejoice and they were merely attempting to make him happy. I never even considered it in such terms though. They thus claimed to be rather let down and expected me to be more mature about this. They also apologized for trying to discredit me, but they claimed they had no other option as they truly wanted this celebration to go off without a hitch. I have been truly perplexed ever since I got that letter. Though I understand this is classic manipulation on one hand, what if they are truly sorry? We are here asking, am I the asshole, AITA, for having my engagement party on the same day as my brother's graduation party? Nina is very torn as well. Edit. Some of you seem to have a problem with the fact that my relatives did not step up for me and try to do something when they had always known that my parents did not treat my brother and me equally. In their defense, I would just like to say that they did all they could. They always tried to be there for me and were always nice and kind to me. I'm pretty sure that a few of them even tried to speak to my parents to make them realize that the way they were treating me and Leon so differently was not fair to either of us. But my parents did not care. And honestly, what more could they have done? It's not like it was a crime bad enough to warrant demanding custody of me. That would have just been absurd. And I don't think anybody wanted to do that either, since they also have their lives and families to think about. Besides, I was doing just fine. I generally stopped having expectations from my parents after a certain point, so I do not mind that they put my brother up on a pedestal and did not seem to care much about me. As long as everything was paid for, I didn't care. I'm on good terms with the rest of my family, and I don't mind the fact that most of them are on good terms with my parents and my brother as well. I haven't made them choose. I had just said that if they chose not to attend my party, then we would have had a problem. But honestly, all of them did attend, and I don't mind anymore if they continue to be on good terms with my parents and Leon. I made that very clear at the party as well. Anyway, most of you were questioning why I even bothered to keep in touch with the rest of my family. And yeah, this is why. I just don't think that it's that deep. This is between my parents, my brother, and me, not them. I don't want to drag them into this for no reason. Update 1. After reading most of the responses on my initial post, I concluded that I had nothing to regret a few days later. After emailing them that I did not feel like talking to them anymore and would really appreciate it if they remained away from me from now on, I kept my parents and Leon blocked as well as the number they had contacted me from earlier. I have not heard from them for the past 3 days and none of my relatives had anything to say either. Still, today was really different. My mother visited us just before Nina and I were ready to head off for work. This was only her. My dad and Leon were not with her. She is generally much more subdued than they are. I chose to invite her in since I felt that we might at last have a civilized conversation like grown-up adults rather than engage in a yelling fight. She told me once she was inside that she was here to chat to both of us, hence Nina had to join the discussion as well. We sat there, and then she began by stating she truly regretted whatever occurred lately and wanted to apologize on behalf of all three of them. To be honest, I don't really count that as an apology since, had all three of them wanted to apologize, they ought to have turned up together and done so. It is not enough just to send my mother apologizing notes. Still, I said nothing about it. Then my mother continued, saying she was still really offended over one item that had happened on their most recent visit even though she realized they had screwed up. She stated she valued our 10-year relationship and thought Nina was like her own daughter, but on their last visit Nina had threatened to call the cops on my father. Now she thought they deserved an apology for that since, no matter what, this was between family and Nina wasn't family yet. Nina had been shouting in my dad's face, threatening to call the police, and had even told him he had to leave our house right then. That had been rather rude. Now, since they were willing to atone for what they had done, she expected the two of us to also apologize, since we had also treated them disrespectfully. Nina for yelling at my parents, and me for letting it go and passively observing while my fiancé yelled at my parents. For a moment neither of us knew what to say. Then I became rather agitated by what was being said, so I informed my mother that although I valued her gesture of showing up and apologizing on behalf of my family, it was entirely pointless. Since it was just my mom, I had genuinely thought that she would at least make sense and try to right things. They still couldn't let go of their great ego though. She had just wasted half an hour of our time, and I informed her straightforwardly that we did not need a moral lecture from her. Since Nina had arrived at our house uninvited, I told her she was exactly within her rights to shout at whoever she chose. We had opened the door because we honestly thought we could have a conversation with them and clear the air, but they had shown us wrong by acting like lunatic persons and yelling in our faces as soon as the door was opened to them. More crucially, it made little difference to me whether or not they regarded Nina as family. To be honest, she was my family. Even more so than they were. Therefore, neither of us owed them any apologies, and right now I wouldn't want one from them either. Now that she had said whatever she came to say and we had listened to her out, I informed my mother we were done and she had to leave. She refused to get up though, and declared she would not tolerate this kind of behavior from me. Since I was not even interested in communicating with my family anymore, it really started to get a little annoying. I ended up telling my mother that I really did not care what type of behavior she would take from me. I had separated myself from them anyhow once I graduated from college, and now, following all that had transpired, I just wanted never to talk to them ever again. I wanted her out of my life, hence I was fine with it if she disliked this kind of behavior. She did not have to put up with me. The same went for my dad and brother. After a little argument, she informed me that they were leaving now since I had made it quite plain that I did not want them in my life, and she was going to make sure I never got to see them ever once again. I assured her I was good with it, and she departed at last. We arrived late for work by a lot, but at least this interaction will help to bring an end to all of this since, to be honest, I'm sick of my family. Every time any of them show up at my house, I just call the cops. That's it. Update 2. Hey, 3 weeks have passed since my last report. Nina and I had quite anticipated this entire thing to have blown over by now. But last night, my folks decided to pay Nina's parents a visit. As I mentioned, we have been together for 10 years. So, even our families know each other really well, and Nina's parents reside a few blocks from mine. They thus showed up at their house around 10 in the night to discuss our children and their terrible behavior. Nina's parents first didn't know what to do since they heard about our recent arguments, but they let them in finally since they wanted to be polite. Nevertheless, they began moaning about how they didn't even know where they had gone wrong with parenting me and were so unhappy that I had turned out this way, whereas Leon was the model of what a wonderful kid should be right away. They began discussing how he was still living with them since he did not want to forsake them in their old age. Yes, as if that were the real reason and not because he lacked the means to live by himself. Neither do my parents ask him to pay for any other bills or expenses. They let him live rent-free. Still, they continued for a few minutes, endlessly praising Leon and disparaging me as nothing but a disappointment. By then Nina's parents knew they were most likely a bit drunk. Then they began discussing Nina and the manner she had allegedly offended them the last time they had seen her. She had always been a shy and quiet child. Thus they were rather surprised since they informed her parents they did not mean to be nasty, but they had never expected Nina to behave this way with them. But she had started displaying her actual hues ever since she got the ring on her finger. Still, they seemed there because they had a scheme in mind. Not too far off, they would be able to bring us into line and increase our respect for our parents. Their idea was a great one. Presumably Nina's parents and neither their parents would be willing to pay for our wedding. So we would be left with no other choice except to apologize for our actions and try to be better children to them. We have always had a decent relationship with Nina's parents, hence I find it strange why they would bring them into any of this. They're, the word, oh yes, normal, unlike my folks, who are as crazy as they come. After mine left, Nina's parents phoned us and updated us on what had happened. Though I really wanted to be furious with them, the whole event was so strange that we all ended up laughing over it. I'm quite happy that she and her parents did not find an issue in my parents' behavior, since otherwise I may have been in trouble, and once more I would have had to apologize for my parents' activities. My prospective in-laws, however, are really laid back and informed me I had no need to worry about any of it. They did not mind, as they knew that both of my parents were not right and had known them for a long period. The following time my parents came up, they would simply refuse to let them in. Still, I'm happy we could straighten that out without any problems. I simply hope they get the hint and avoid bothering Nina's parents once they don't get any reaction from her. Still, just for good measure, I'm going to unblock them and warn them not to harass anyone else in the family. Or, I will be compelled to go legal after action. Though I'm not sure what I would do, I'm rather confident they will be scared even if I simply lie about it. Therefore maybe they may back off. Right now that's the strategy. See whether they attempt something humorous or not. Update 3. Hey, I last blogged over a year ago, and I haven't heard from my brother or parents in practically that long. It has been indeed the best year of my life. 2 months ago, Nina and I also got married. Everyone I love was there for the wedding. We had an amazing time, and a few weeks back we at last came back from our honeymoon. My parents did not wish me well, and neither did Leon. Part of me is happy, since otherwise I would have had to deal with them. I'm just loving married life right now, and I am looking forward to spending the rest of my life with her. I'm not really bothered about anything as long as she is at my side. My parents threatened to skip my wedding if I didn't invite my sister, who slept with my boyfriend. What happened next shocked everyone. I, 28F, never expected to be in this predicament, yet here I am. My sister Lizzie, 26F, and I used to be quite close growing up. We shared a room in our little suburban home, whispering secrets late into the night and daydreaming about our future. Lizzie was always the more outgoing one, with a talent for art and music, whereas I was the studious kind, constantly buried in a book. Despite our disputes, we remained linked. Our parents, John, 55M, and Mary, 53F, raised us to prioritize family above all else. Dad worked long hours as a construction foreman to support us, while Mom worked part-time and ran the family. They instilled in us a strong sense of loyalty and taught us the value of sticking together through thick and thin. Little did I know how much my familial loyalty would be tested in the coming years. I met Jake, 30M, in my sophomore year of college. He was a senior, personable and popular, with a love of books that mirrored mine. We bonded over our mutual love of classic novels, and we spent many hours in quaint coffee shops talking about our favorite authors. Jake was my first serious boyfriend, and I fell hard and quickly. After graduation, Jake opted to stay in town and work at a local publishing business. Our relationship grew stronger, and we soon began discussing our future together. We moved in together after graduation, sharing a small but comfortable apartment near the city center. Jake was always supportive of my marketing career goals and encouraged me to aim high. Meanwhile, Lizzie had decided to pursue her passion for art rather than attend college. She worked several jobs to support herself while attempting to establish a name in the local art community. I admired her tenacity and determination, even though our parents were dismayed by her decision not to pursue more study. Jake and Lizzie hit it off from the start. They shared an interest in indie music and abstract art, frequently engaged in passionate debates about the newest gallery openings or underground bands. I was overjoyed that my boyfriend and sister got along so well, never suspecting that their relationship would develop into something more sinister. 5 years into our partnership, Jake and I were doing well. We'd weathered the storms of early adulthood together, including job changes, financial difficulties, and the death of our beloved childhood dog. We had even begun casually researching engagement rings online, fantasizing about a future wedding and the family we would create together. In contrast, Lizzie's life was more turbulent. She moved from job to job, trying to make ends meet while pursuing her art. There were times when she'd crash on our couch, and Jake and I would assist her financially. I didn't mind. After all, she was my sister, and I wanted to support her goals. Everything changed on a wet Tuesday in April. I had a large presentation at work and discovered I had left some important data on my home laptop. Knowing Lizzie was staying with us that week, I contacted and requested her to send the files to me. She agreed, and I didn't think anything more about it. Hours later, after completing my presentation, I opened my inbox to locate the files from Lizzie, but there was something else, an email thread that Lizzie had mistakenly left open when she gave the files. My heart stopped as I read the letters between her and Jake, which contained intimate information and arrangements for their secret rendezvous. I felt as if the ground had vanished beneath me. I left work early, my thoughts reeling, and confronted Jake in our apartment. He attempted to downplay it at first, claiming it was just a few innocent flirtations, but as I revealed more of what I'd read, his justifications fell apart. Jake finally confessed to a 6-month romance with Lizzie. He claimed that it began innocently, late-night conversations when I was sleeping or working late, a common interest for art that grew into something more. He stated he never wanted to hurt me, that he was confused about his emotions. I couldn't endure hearing it any longer and urged him to leave. Confronting Lizzie was even more challenging. I approached her modest studio apartment, my hands trembling as I knocked on the door. When she opened it, her expression sank. She knew I had found out. Unlike Jake, Lizzie did not attempt to offer explanations. She looked me in the eyes and told me she'd fallen in love with Jake, that they hadn't planned it but couldn't resist their feelings. The following several months were a haze of agony and hatred. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Jake and stayed on a friend's couch until I could locate my own place. I put myself into work, picking up extra assignments to keep my mind occupied. I cut off all contact with Jake and Lizzie, blocking their phone numbers and social media profiles. My parents were devastated by the news. They attempted to mediate at first, encouraging me to hear Lizzie out and contemplate forgiveness, but I couldn't handle the thought of being in the same room with her. The treachery was too new, too deep. They eventually stopped pushing, but I could see the sadness in their eyes every time the subject came up. After nearly a year of treatment and self-reflection, I felt ready to date again. I first met Alex, 32M, at a charity fundraiser at the local animal shelter. He was tall, with nice eyes and a kind grin that put me at ease right away. We bonded over our mutual love of dogs and our volunteer experiences at the shelter. Alex was kind and compassionate as I discussed my past. He never pushed me to go faster than I felt comfortable with, always respecting my limits. Slowly but gradually, I found myself falling in love again, this time with a man who genuinely liked and admired me. 2 years into our relationship, Alex proposed on a morning trek to our favorite viewing point. It was simple, private, and beautiful. As we started planning our wedding, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The thought of walking down the aisle again triggered memories I'd rather forget. Everything was going fine until my dad mentioned inviting Lizzie to the wedding. They contended that she is still family and should be present on my special day. The very suggestion made my stomach turn. How could I celebrate the most joyful day of my life with someone who had given me so much pain? I adamantly refused, informing my parents that Lizzie's presence would just bring up sad memories and could ruin the day. Alex agreed with me, saying that our wedding should be about our love and happiness, not attempting to patch relationships that may be beyond repair. My parents did not take it well. They accused me of being petty and unwilling to move forward. They even threatened not to go if Lizzie was not invited. Some of our relatives have also gotten involved, accusing me of selfishness for separating the family and asking me to be a better person. But I don't believe I'm in the wrong here. Lizzie deceived me in the worst manner possible. She slept with the man I expected to spend my life with. I fought hard to overcome that anguish and start a new life with Alex. I don't want anything to compromise my newfound contentment and calm. Reddit, am I wrong to not invite my sister to my wedding? Am I being petty? Or do I have the right to remove someone who has badly injured me from one of the most important events in my life? Update 1. I'd like to thank everyone who left helpful comments and advice on my first article. The response was amazing, and it gave me the confidence to have a difficult but essential conversation with my parents. I invited them over to supper last week, determined to clear the air and establish some boundaries. The evening started out tense. Mom kept trying to shift the talk toward wedding plans, while Dad was unusually silent. After we finished our meal, I took a big breath and went in. I described in detail how Lizzie's actions had affected me, including the sleepless nights, trust issues that nearly ruined my relationship with Alex, and the therapy sessions I need to work through my pain. I told them about the panic attacks I used to get anytime I saw a couple that reminded me of Jake and Lizzie, how I'd lost weight because food tasted bad, and how I'd poured myself into work to avoid dealing with my feelings. To my amazement, Mom burst into tears midway through my explanation. Between sobbing, she acknowledged that they had pushed for Lizzie's inclusion out of remorse. It turned out that Lizzie's life had spiraled drastically after the incident. My parents told me that Lizzie had lost her job at the gallery where she had been working. Her drinking, which had previously been sociable, had progressed to the point that she was rarely sober. She'd been in a run of short-lived, destructive relationships, one of which left her in the hospital with a broken arm. Mom and Dad felt responsible for not seeing Lizzie's problem sooner. They scolded themselves for applauding her free spirit without acknowledging that she may have required more guidance and assistance. In their thoughts, inviting Lizzie to the wedding was a means to reintegrate her into the group and possibly help her get her life back on track. While I sympathized with Lizzie's hardships, I made it clear that this did not excuse her behavior or erase the anguish she caused me. I reminded them of all the instances they had assisted Lizzie financially and emotionally over the years, emphasizing how supportive they had always been as parents. I emphasized that I was not responsible for Lizzie's well-being, and I shouldn't have to give up my peace of mind for her. Dad, who had kept silent for the majority of the conversation, suddenly piped out. He told me a story from his own background that I had never heard before. Apparently, his older brother had done something similar, compromising Dad's trust significantly when they were younger. They had never really reconciled, and I could see sadness in Dad's eyes as he recounted decades of stressful family reunions and squandered possibilities. He stated that he did not want the same for Lizzie and me, which is why he has been pushing for reconciliation. But he also admitted that he couldn't compel forgiveness and that healing had to happen on my own terms. Dad apologized for pressuring me and promised that he and Mom would respect my decision regarding the wedding. He also told me that they would attend, with or without Lizzie. My parents agreed to speak with the relatives who had been causing me problems and explain the issue. They vowed to stop any future attempts to guilt-trip me into inviting Lizzie. After this emotional chat, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Although my feelings remained unresolved, I felt heard and understood by my parents for the first time since the ordeal began. Alex, who had made himself scarce during the dinner to allow us peace, was quite supportive when I told him later that night. He held me while I cried, a mixture of relief and anguish sweeping over me. He advised we take a weekend trip to decompress and refocus on our wedding planning. We had a wonderful weekend at a nearby beach town, simply enjoying each other's company and finalizing some wedding plans. We chose our wedding cake, chocolate with raspberry filling, planned the celebration playlist, and even practiced our first dance on the beach under the starlight. This event has increased my appreciation for Alex. He's been my rock through it all, constantly prioritizing my sentiments and wholeheartedly supporting me. I am more confident than ever that I am marrying the right guy. The wedding is now less than 2 months away, and I'm looking forward to celebrating our love with those who actually care about us. I still feel sad about Lizzie's absence, but I know this is the best decision for my mental health and happiness. Thank you again, Reddit, for assisting me in standing my ground and prioritizing my well-being. Your support has meant more than you realize. Update 2. It has been a crazy few weeks since my last post, and I have some unexpected news to offer. I received Lizzie's letter around 3 weeks ago. The envelope lay on our kitchen counter for days, and I hesitated whether to open it or throw it away. Alex, ever the voice of reason, argued that reading it might bring some closure, even if I choose not to react. Finally, on a peaceful Sunday morning, I mustered the confidence to open the letter. It was many pages lengthy and contained Lizzie's trademark loopy handwriting. As I read, I could practically hear her voice in my thoughts, recalling late-night chats and secrets from our youth. Lizzie began by acknowledging the grief she had caused me, accepting full responsibility for her actions without making excuses. She wrote of the downward spiral her life had taken after Jake left her, and how she turned to drink to alleviate her remorse and shame. She admitted to suffering from depression, which had begun long before the episode with Jake but had increased dramatically thereafter. Her admission that she was going to rehab stunned me the most. She had apparently been in a treatment facility for the previous 6 months, focusing on her sobriety and mental wellness. She wrote of the grueling treatment sessions, group gatherings, and the difficult task of confronting her demons. Lizzie mentioned that part of her healing journey was making amends to individuals she had harmed. She clarified that she did not seek forgiveness and respected my decision not to include her at the wedding. Her intention in writing was just to apologize and inform me that she was attempting to become a better person. The letter finished with a story from our childhood. I stood up for her against some bullies at school. Lizzie stated that she had always admired my tenacity and honesty, and that betraying me was her biggest regret in life. I'd want to say that after reading the letter, I felt a rush of forgiveness, but the truth is that I was left conflicted. A part of me remained furious and sad, while another sensed a glimmer of the sisterly affection we had shared. I decided to take some time to examine my emotions before making any decisions. After a few days of deliberation and numerous conversations with Alex, I decided to meet Lizzie at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in town. Seeing her in person after 3 years seemed weird. She looked different, thinner, with black circles under her eyes, but she exuded a peace that had not been there before. Our conversation began awkwardly, with many pauses and hesitant phrases, but as we spoke, it became easier. Lizzie restated what she had said in the letter, her voice breaking with emotion as she apologized once more for the hurt she had caused. She told me more about her sober journey and the work she had done in therapy. Lizzie even showed me a journal in which she had been writing letters to me as part of her recovery, though she had no intention of sending them. Reading excerpts from her genuine, unedited thoughts during those sad days was eye-opening. I will not lie, it was an emotional meeting. We both shed tears as we discussed the past and the agony we had both endured. Lizzie revealed that she and Jake had split up just months after I discovered them, their relationship collapsing under the weight of guilt and resentment. She hadn't communicated with him since. By the end of our appointment, I felt a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. The wrath that had been burning inside me for years began to subside, and was replaced by a complex mix of sadness, relief, and cautious hope. After much deliberation and debate with Alex, I have decided not to invite Lizzie to the wedding. It's too soon, and I want to enjoy my special day without additional worry or mental issues. However, I've agreed to try to re-establish our friendship gradually, beginning with occasional text messages and perhaps coffee meets in the future. Lizzie acknowledged and appreciated my decision. She even sent Alex and me a modest gift, a lovely hand-painted letter wishing us success in our marriage. It reminded me of the cards she used to make for my birthdays when we were younger, which brought back bittersweet memories. I understand that this process of healing and regaining trust will be long and may be challenging. There are still times when the anguish of betrayal resurfaces, reminding me of everything we have lost. But for the first time in 3 years, I am optimistic about having my sister back in my life eventually. The wedding preparations are in full flow. Alex and I are delighted to celebrate our love with our closest friends and family. While Lizzie will not be present, I am more at ease with that decision now. Our special day will be spent looking forward to our future together, rather than lingering on past hurts. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my wedding, and I wanted to provide you with a last report on this chapter of my life. The wedding day was simply wonderful. Alex and I exchanged vows in front of our loved ones in the stunning vineyard setting we had chosen. The weather was perfect, with a moderate breeze and brilliant blue skies that appeared to reflect the joy I felt inside my heart. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, my gaze fixed on Alex's. All of the drama and pain of the previous years seemed to fade away in that instant. As I stood at the altar with my soon-to-be husband, all I could feel was love and appreciation. The ceremony was modest and personal, with readings picked by our closest friends and vows written by ourselves. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when Alex swore to always be my safe harbor, and I promised to be his constant companion throughout life's experiences. The reception was a happy occasion. The meal was wonderful, the wine was plenty, and the dance floor was full all night. My parents were on their best behavior, honoring Alex and me with no mention of Lizzie. It was great to see them so joyful and supportive. Lizzie followed my requests and did not attempt to contact me on the wedding day. Instead, she delivered a gorgeous bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite flower since childhood, to my hotel room. The accompanying note congratulated us and wished us a life of happiness. It was a lovely gesture that I appreciated even more than I had imagined. Since the wedding, Alex and I have adjusted into married life, which has been fantastic. We recently purchased our first home together, a quaint craftsman-style house with a modest backyard. We've enjoyed making it our own by painting the walls and adding a garden. It feels nice to be starting a life together and making new memories in a space that is genuinely ours. My friendship with Lizzie is gradually improving. We've had a few more coffee meetings and are now texting on a regular basis. Our chats are still somewhat guarded, but there is a developing comfort between us that reminds me of our previous connection. Last month, we even ate dinner with our parents. It was a little awkward at begin, with everyone trying to avoid certain issues, but as the evening proceeded it became more like old times. Lizzie remains committed to her recovery and has been making significant improvements in her life. She's back in school, training to be a counselor for disturbed teenagers. She thinks her own experiences have given her insight into the difficulties that young people encounter, and she wants to help others avoid the mistakes she did. Seeing her progress and commitment to changing her life has aided me in my forgiveness journey. Lizzie recently inquired if she might exhibit some of her work at a local gallery. I hesitated at first, recollections of her previous artistic pursuits triggering conflicting feelings, but I decided to go. With Alex by my side for support. Walking into the gallery, I was taken aback by the transformation in her work. The chaotic dark pieces of her turbulent years were replaced by brilliant, hopeful canvases that appeared to throb with life. One painting in particular caught my eye. 2 interwoven trees with branches reaching for the sky. Lizzie subsequently told me that it reflected her wish for our relationship to flourish together again after our separation. While we are not back to being best friends, and I doubt we ever will be, I am delighted we are working to mend our friendship. It's a lengthy process, with occasional setbacks when past hurts resurface, but it feels right. We're learning to be sisters again in a way that honors our separate paths and who we've become. I would like to thank everyone who helped me through this difficult time. Your guidance and encouragement help me stay strong and make the best decisions for myself. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries, self-care, and the power of forgiveness. Not for the benefit of the other person, but for my own peace of mind. Looking back, I recognize that the healing process isn't linear. There are good days and bad days, moments of progress and moments of uncertainty, but I'm pleased of how far I've gone and enthusiastic about what the future holds with Alex. To anyone in a similar situation, remember that it is acceptable to prioritize your personal well-being. Healing takes time, and you don't have to forgive somebody until you're ready to do so. Trust your intuition, surround yourself with helpful people, and do not be hesitant to seek professional help if necessary. As for me, I'm looking forward to the next chapter in my relationship with Alex. We're talking about starting a family soon, and the prospect of becoming parents both excites and scares us. Whatever problems come our way, I am confident that we will confront them together, stronger for having weathered the storm. Facing the truth. Discovering my fiancé's deception, just 2 weeks before our wedding and the consequences that follow. I really have to get this off my mind. I feel like I'm going crazy. For around 6 years, engaged for 1, my fiancée Sarah and I have known each other. Our wedding is set for just 2 weeks, and I recently saw something that makes me feel as if I am making the worst mistake of my life. Sarah and I were using tonight a rare chance to unwind at home. While I was out back working on one of my projects, Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Anyway, as you do when working hard, I became thirsty and returned home to grab a drink. There Sarah was at the counter cooking supper and speaking on speakerphone. The voice caught me right away as Marty, my brother-in-law. This is now where my thinking goes completely distorted. Having been attempting to get in touch with her and she is not responding texts, Marty questioned Sarah where her sister, Evelyn, is. She just left here. She should be home in a half hour or so, Sarah says to him. It should be mentioned that Evelyn is the 5-year-old wife of Marty. I have to admit that I went into the kitchen, got a glass and asked Sarah, what was that all about? Not right once registering what she had just said. She said, Marty was looking for Evie. Seeing her texting, I inquired, what are you doing? She says, I'm texting Evie that Marty was looking for her. Still, I pour myself a drink, settle down, sip, and then at last my brain kicks in. First of all, I heard Sarah tell Marty Evelyn was here. Evelyn was not here. The last time we saw her was yesterday when she visited to work on some last-minute wedding decoration with Sarah. Second, when I clearly heard Marty mention Evelyn wasn't responding to her texts, why is she texting Evelyn expecting a response? Finally, unless she either knows where she is or right now in front of me, texting her to tell her to get her butt home fast, why the hell would she tell Marty that Evelyn should be back in 30 minutes? My only conclusion is that Sarah is presumably alerting Evie that Marty would expect her home in half an hour and is lying to Marty about the location of her sister. Then I spent probably the next 5 hours creating several theories explaining this behavior. Some decent, some absolutely terrible, and running them back in my thoughts. Though I wanted very badly to ask Sarah about this, I doubted I would get a straight response if what I believe to be happening is indeed happening. Which gets me roughly 1 hour ago. About 1 in the morning, I got up to use the loo and found myself driven to check Sarah's phone. Knowing each other's pins, this wasn't a challenging task for us. Still, I took the phone, went to the restroom, unlocked it, and yep, exactly what I was terrified of and most likely what most of you were hoping for. For approximately 6 months, Sarah's sister Evelyn has been having an affair with a coworker. Sarah has been helping Evelyn hide it for practically that whole period. Between them, there are literally hundreds of books covering sex, the coworker, even quite embarrassing topics about my brother-in-law, just stuff that makes my stomach turn. And here is my soon-to-be bride following all of it without questioning. I grabbed some screenshots of the whole thread, put the phone back where I discovered it, and then withdrew to my home office to find myself here blogging it all out on Reddit just so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I am exactly 100% screwed, Reddit. I just cannot do it. I cannot marry Sarah. Regarding helping her sister in this affair and victimizing not just Marty but also their 2-year-old kid, I cannot conceive of any logical justification she could present me. On the other hand, my family, Sarah, her family, and I have all invested a lot of money into a wedding scheduled for about 2 weeks. We are not receiving any of that money returned. On top of that, I feel completely dumb. How could I have missed knowing this woman was this way? And just what the devil am I going to do? I most definitely cannot marry her. Still, I still wish. She is gorgeous, laid back, compassionate, and I felt our future was bright. She never wronged me, but I just cannot view her the same today. It's like a large black blot on a lovely image. I'm genuinely dreading doing what I know I need to do. I simply don't know how the heck I got this so wrong. I wish I could break something or throw up. Edit. Guys, you clearly don't need to persuade me not to wed Sarah. The wedding is off. I'm simply trying to decide what to do going forward and build the nerve to act. Though the expectations of everyone put a lot of pressure on me, I am not going to bow beneath it. Simply said, I'm not enjoying having to deal with the repercussions. I'm more than a little irate about finding myself in this position. Edit 2. It is 5 a.m. I'm running off a few hours of sleep and have work in 3 hours. I'm going to shower and head into work rather early to avoid Stu on this. Sarah and Stu are avoided. Thanks to the encouraging folks here and a huge raspberry to the dill holes who keep telling I should figure out whatever excellent reason my soon-to-be ex-fiancé had for this trash. Edit 3. I started working about 7. I started working on the Band-Aid because nobody was in the office and contacted my brother. Living in Australia, he was still up after putting his children to bed. Breaking the news to him about this was difficult since, although I know he has set aside a lot of money for flights for his family and himself to visit, to his credit, as an older brother, he didn't mention it once and simply supported me. He also raised a really important issue. He said, "You deal daily with liars and scammers in a job where this is expected. You are not to blame for seeking somewhere to visit where this is not a consideration." He was exactly right about it, and now I understand why I'm reacting so fiercely to Sarah's involvement in this dishonesty. He also made a brilliant suggestion. He planned to bring his family to Florida for some sightseeing and park visits. Well, the youngsters will now also be accompanied by their uncle. We were going to honeymoon there as well, thus it should be simple as we were going to meet them for some anyway. I'll just offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member and rebook things to be near his and his family. Though I have responded a few, I haven't had time to review everyone's remarks. Right now, I'm simply trying to divert myself until the day goes on enough where I can reach out to Marty by drinking cup after cup of coffee and attempting to make myself sick. Edit 4. Just performed morning stand-up. Having been here so early, my stomach is doing flip-flops from drinking around 2 pots of coffee. I absolutely cannot focus and concentrate. I'm just going to take a sick day, drive over to check if Marty is available since I feel like I can't really anything from my end until I tell him what I know. If not, I will find him down and phone him. Evelyn works a 9 to 5 like me, hence chances are excellent this works out. Marty is a teacher on break right now. Wish Reddit luck. Edit 5. Arrived at Marty's residence somewhat after 10 a.m. We had a long, really nasty conversation in the kitchen after he had just dropped his daughter off for a nap. He guessed this for a few months essentially, but Evelyn has been rather successful at covering her traces, clearly with Sarah's help and a few of their mutual pals. I regretfully only have a few hundred screenshots from Sarah's phone, not all 6 months of text chats, but I provided him what I have and offered to assist him though I could. I know a few things and a few people since I'm a field analyst in the CU department of a mid-sized insurer specialized in workers' compensation fraud. Still, I am trying to save anything I can from my laptop in the almost brother-in-law's kitchen. Knowing I won't screw Marty over, I have to talk to Sarah tonight and get the word out as soon as I can to my friends and family now. Although our airline has a surname restriction for name changes, I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon thus far. Sarah was flying under her maiden name, thus I had trouble with the ticket. Still, they let me cancel and obtain a partial refund and rebook for my sister, who will be traveling to Florida with 2 brothers and nieces in a few weeks. I absolutely will be letting my family and friends know this afternoon sometime and beg them to keep it close, but I am delaying canceling the venues until after I talk to Sarah since I don't want to tip anyone off until Marty gets his chance to confront Evelyn. Right now I'm essentially in a frenzy, canceling whatever I can cancel, and I'm heading down to the bank in a few to open a new account and pay my payments and straighten my money. Though some have highlighted them, it should be really decent. Since we were not married, the mortgage is in my name. Although Sarah did contribute roughly $20,000 against my $60,000 down payment, I have more income. Though it could be worse, I will most likely have to pay her out that money and a portion of the mortgage payments for the last 16 months. Update was sent as an edit right on the same post. Right now it's about 8:30 p.m. I'm writing from my friend's place. Mark is his name. He used to be a co-worker of mine in the same line of business. As I indicated in a prior update, I work for a respectable-sized insurance carrier's CU department as a field analyst. For those uninitiated, I essentially work as a private investigator. My task is to look at what we believe to be bogus workers' compensation claims. Anyway, as I sort of hinted at, Marty wanted me to help him identify the other man Evelyn was seeing for adultery. We had only a name, let us call him Jake. The first thing I did was not some significant amount of investigating. It was essentially simply looking through LinkedIn, attempting to discover the guy using Evelyn's contacts, but it turned up nothing, which I thought odd. According to Marty, Evelyn claimed she wouldn't be home until perhaps 9 or 10 and that she was meant to be out for drinks tonight following work. I basically understood straight immediately, so he didn't have to explain what he suspected. I told him I would assist him, but he had to come with me. After that, I called my friend Mark, let him know about the circumstances, and asked him to meet us later in the day. Driving over to Marty's parents' house so they could see their granddaughter came first. I waited in the car and have no idea what Marty said them. We next headed to Evelyn's place of employment. One of those big commercial strip malls, it features a sizable non-gated parking park and all of these bland offices in a row. We drove till we came at Evelyn's car, then using the second set of keys, I had Marty unlock it. I next handed Marty a GPS tracker to put in the car and a voice-activated recorder. Once finished with that, we went, parked somewhat down the street, and watched for Evelyn to leave the company and for my friend to arrive. About 20 minutes later, Mark arrived, climbed in the car with us, and about an hour later Evelyn emerged from her workplace carrying 2 of her pals along with a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. Clearly holding hands, I thought, damn Evelyn, you're making it easy for me. After a few shots from the car, I waited for Evelyn to leave in hers and began following her. She didn't go straight to a motel or anything, first thinking she may Rather, she drove to a reasonably good pub and grill in a pleasant area of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she got out of her car and into the building, then located my own parking space and headed over to the factory. We first dispatched Mark since nobody knew him. He essentially had two jobs. First, try to find any compromising photos of Evelyn and Jake. Second, provide my alibi. After about 20 minutes in the car, Marty and I received the first in Mark's series of text messages. These images show Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female colleagues. Captured. Marty's misgivings were correct. They were enabling Evelyn to keep the affair from him. He was clearly really agitated and offended. One of the colleagues apparently is married, and as a couple they get along well with Marty and Evelyn, both of whom have children around the same age. When I asked Marty whether it was sufficient for him, he stated he still genuinely wanted to know who this guy was. We could find out later, I tried to tell him, but at this point he was nearly begging me, so I begged him to wait, texted Mark that I was on my way, and then I went inside the pub myself. Evelyn and her gang were laughing and drinking at one of those big circular tables close to the front window. First thing I saw. I halted as I came in, acted to be startled, then yelled out to Evelyn, "Hi, you're doing here?" Clearly startled to see me, everyone surrounding her stiffened up right away. Evelyn stated we were being married in 2 weeks and fast introduced me as her sister's fiancé. Everyone was congratulating each other really extensively. I thanked them and then reached out my hand to the blonde man, introduced myself using my entire name, thinking he would react in same manner. He did. I was a little surprised since he wasn't named Jake. I greeted everyone else and then told Evelyn I was going to see a coworker. I waved to Mark, then excused myself. Once I walked over to Mark, I told him the guy's name. We both grabbed our phones and headed to work. We located him not too long ago. He has social media profiles and a few court case rulings against him. When we learned Jake was his middle name, everything almost came together. At this point, I'm basically happy Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with two other colleagues. Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter, turns out. This simply gets better and better. Anyway, I instructed Marty to wait a few more minutes after texting him the guy's name and decided I wanted to challenge myself. I was essentially watching over children here at the bar. I could see out of the corner of my eye that nobody was especially delighted about this, and my presence was seriously hurting the evening. I was clearly visible to Evelyn and her crew. Excellent. About 10 minutes later, I informed Marty to text Evelyn saying he was spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. Not long after that, I found Evelyn pulling out her phone to show Jake, then everyone decided to pack up. Good night. Evelyn came over to me and asked whether Sarah and I wanted to visit for dinner this weekend. I grinned and wished her and her colleagues a happy night. That sounded like a terrific idea. After Mark and I paid our payment and ran back to the waiting Marty, we watched them go. Here there was some uncertainty since we were unsure of Evelyn's actual behavior. I had thought she might have already reserved a hotel room and was on her way, which would have greatly reduced my options and complicated everything. It turns out, though, that tonight was most likely meant to be just drinks at the bar. It wasn't until Marty chose to spend the evening at his parents' house that it became anything more. Evelyn headed straight home, and we trailed behind her, parking down the street and keeping out of sight. Not long after that, another car drew into Marty's driveway. We watched Jake get out, approach the door, knock, and be met by Evelyn. They entered together. At this moment it's roughly 7:30, and tonight I have personal business to attend to. As a friend, I believe I have done rather nearly all I could have for Marty. He can manage the remainder alone. I mean, I feel awful for the guy, absolutely, but I don't want to participate in this drama any more than I already do. Given my circumstances, it seems excessive for me to be the wingman for him facing his cheating wife. Marty says it's good. He will do the rest himself. Evelyn, perhaps he is more of a man than you could have imagined. He visits Evelyn's automobile, picks my equipment, and we say farewell. That was practically 2 hours ago. My phone hasn't been blowing, hence I'm not sure what's going on with Evelyn. I did get one text message from Marty indicating it was done and he was heading to his parents' place for real this time. Ever then, I have been at Mark's. That sums up my role in Marty's narrative essentially. He entered the house recording with his phone if he was wise and followed my counsel. Later on I will find out. Still, my first focus is getting home to tell Sarah the wedding is off. She almost certainly will take it poorly. There is no way she won't. But as I mentioned, right now I simply cannot get married to her. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for us or whether we will live with each other or not, most definitely we are not getting married anytime soon. For those who keep repeating, why didn't you speak with her first? Why did you not face her? Are you folks dumb? I have to ask. She stone-cold lied in front of her brother-in-law, whom she has known for roughly 10 years and allegedly believes to be a truly wonderful husband and father. I'm not wired that way. Maybe you are foolish enough to believe that someone can lie that ruthlessly to someone they should care about and then give you the truth. I never had cause to doubt Sarah or not trust her until that point. She was physically unreliable in front of my face and I should let it go or expect her to be honest with me. You probably have no idea what it's like to have your whole perspective of someone change suddenly. It's confusing and, quite honestly, a little panic-inducing. Since it brought me to the truth, I'm actually surprised I kept my head and followed my instincts instead of rushing her right away. If she had lied to me and then deleted those text messages, I would never have read the terrible things she said, never seen how crafty and two-faced she could be, and never learned how little I really knew about her. It would have been shockingly simple for her to lie to me and then erase those texts. I'm headed home to chat to Sarah. I will notify everyone later with the official result. Not expecting it to be a nice one. Here's still another update for you folks. I suppose there is plenty to cover and that much has transpired. If I'm honest, most of it hasn't been that outstanding. Actually, it has been quite shoddy, but I will get to that. I started off somewhat late that evening leaving Mark's residence. Though she had no idea the company was really her sister's affair, Sarah already knew I was out talking business with him. Still, it was approaching an irrational hour partly because I was trying to muster the strength to go home and confront her. Following 2 or 3 pep talks from Mark, I finally got off my keister, texted Sarah that I was heading home, and drove away. As I mentioned in the last report, I was really taken aback when I arrived since Evelyn was sobbing on the couch with Sarah when I stepped into the house. This was most likely the last thing I expected since Evelyn's car had disappeared from the driveway when I returned home. I stopped momentarily and almost spun around and left. I thought Evelyn's presence would make a terrible scenario a million times worse, so this was not how I expected this to be going down. Still, I had plans for which I wished to advance. The symbolic clock was running in the back of my mind. I had friends to tell and wedding plans to cancel. Both Sarah and Evelyn glanced up at me in thanks when I walked into the room, but the litany of charges never materialized. I just looked back, questioning my eyes. The moment passed. Evelyn returned to crying. Sarah returned to consoling, and I let the awkward half-minute hang in the air as I considered. Marty seemed to have neglected mentioning my help with Evelyn's affairs discovery. Not for any other purpose than to watch how Sarah responded, I chose to play dumb. I settled on a reclining chair, dropped my laptop bag, and pulled my phone from my pocket. I pretended to be fidgety with it, then asked them, "What's going on?" Evelyn simply kept crying, but Sarah turned to look at me and said, "Marty is divorcing Evie." Well, certainly, I figured as much. I chose to forward with the obvious inquiry. "What for?" I said to her. Sarah looked at me and stopped massaging Evelyn's back momentarily. Her face seemed to twist and distort practically. Imagine the look a 5-year-old produces when you order them to finish their lima beans or eat their broccoli. Evelyn looked at Sarah a way I wouldn't have known from a sister, and there was a pregnant silence until Sarah blurted, "She cheated on him." Now, I have to admit, this answer really stunned me. I had definitely not expected this. Indeed, the more cynical readers here could believe that, well, the cat was out of the bag, so there's no point in hiding it. And indeed, that is accurate. She could have, however, equally easily pretended to be ignorant or perhaps phrased it another way. Like Marty accused Evie of cheating, instead of essentially verifying it to my face. Though it's part of my job to pay attention to not only what people say but also how they say it, so maybe I'm being pedantic here. Evelyn wasn't happy about this. She sort of sank into the couch a little and performed this unusual simultaneous sigh and sob. I must have stammered a little, but I wanted to keep on and head for the gold, sort of speaking. Sarah most likely saw it as shock, and although she would have been right in a sense, just not in the way she would have anticipated. Do you know? Sarah nodded, her hand still massaging her sister's shoulder. She said nothing. Not slow, I asked the clear follow-up. How long? 6 months came back far more readily than I had anticipated. Her easy admission to it startled me. Evelyn was startled as well. She smacked her sister's hand off her, and I believe even Sarah was slightly startled to say it aloud. Leaning back in the recliner, I got ready to pull the rest of the Band-Aid clear. We aren't planning to get married. From both sisters, there were 2 looks like surprised goats and a chorus of what? Rising, I repeated myself. We're not getting married. Not for 6 months especially. I cannot wed someone who would hide infidelity. Sarah jumped off the couch and opened her arms. The body language screamed, "You can't be serious." But I merely put my palms in front of myself. I take this seriously. Not little, I dislike this. I can't get married to you with way I feel, and I dislike that you participated in this. One would make a mistake here. The waterworks began right away, and even Evelyn performed the perch-like mouth action meant to be sucking air. Wails from Sarah, claims of not loving her, appeals to my sense of obligation, lost money, trouble for all our friends, humiliation of it all. Though it was really nothing I hadn't considered, hearing Sarah express it through agonizing sobbing felt quite different. I responded, "Look, I already canceled the honeymoon," trying to persuade Sarah of the finality of it all. Well, maybe not, since I have no idea how long Marty would have kept my involvement in everything off the books. Not happening is what I'm saying here. The second it left my mouth, I realized it was a bomb, and the explosion was almost instantaneous. To her credit, Evelyn had always been really fast on the pickup, which most likely helped her fool her husband for so long. When she combined my look at the bar earlier in the evening with her awareness, I could almost see the realization setting in on her. She yelled, "You son of a expletive," and shot across the room at me. Though I'm not a big man now and I'm not slouch either, the power Evelyn threw at me caused me to lurch backward. I hardly had time to grab my hands before her finger-based raking of my face began. I nearly dropped the phone I still had in hand, but I pushed her away and yelled very loudly, "Evelyn, get off me! Sarah, get your sister in line!" Evelyn sprang for me once more, but shockingly Sarah wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and kept her in place as asked. Holding my phone up for emphasis, I exclaimed, "Get out of here right now, or I am calling the police," at Evelyn. Sarah urged us both to cool off. She doesn't have anywhere to go right now," she told me, and Marty took her car keys. That explained the empty driveway automobile, but it didn't really matter. With Evelyn, I was 100% through and I wanted to make sure she knew it. I marched into my house office, slammed the door, and called the police. I said I had locked myself in my office, had been attacked by the sister of my fiancé, and that I was bleeding from my face. My vision was fuzzy and Evelyn had scraped me really nicely around the inside of my left eye. I was afraid for my life. I even informed them I had on my phone the whole fight captured. Sarah knocked on the door just as I was wrapping out my call through. Kindly leave. We have to discuss this. Kindly, I love you. Please, do not do this. We have no need of doing this. Even Evelyn wants to apologize. She feels guilty. Though Sarah was clearly losing her expletive, I'm rather confident last one was a lie. I ignored her, and her attempts to cajole me from the office stopped most likely just as the cops arrived at our front door. I decided to come out when I heard Sarah chatting to them. 2 men made up the cops. One of them appeared younger than me, perhaps around Sarah's age, and the other one appeared older and more irritated about life in general. I said hello, pointed at Evelyn, said she attacked me, and volunteered to show the cops the tape I recorded. The younger one questioned whether I intended to file charges. I agreed. Once more, he asked me whether I intended to file charges. Again, I answered yes. Both police glanced at each other at this time. Before the young cop could open his mouth once more, I exclaimed, "Yes, damned it, I want to press charges. I have video proof. This is going to court. Else, I'm going to ask your supervisor to come down and handle it personally." Not that we are buddies or anything, but given my line of work, I spend plenty of time engaging with local law enforcement, and I have seen most of the brass or spoken with them on the phone a couple of times in the last several years. I think they were really shocked that I recognized his name. To be honest, I was starting to get really hot under the collar at this point. Although I could see what these men were thinking, I absolutely disagree with it. Facts are what they are. Facts. Yes, I might not be bleeding on the floor, but Evelyn attacked me in my own house and I wanted her gone. Fortunately, the matter did not quickly get out of hand. The two cops detained Evelyn and placed her in the rear of the police car. She was weeping and squealing all the entire time, like some kind of gibbering crazy. Sarah wasn't any better. She merely kept repeating, "No, please no," again and over. The younger cop rounded around at this moment to ask whether everything was fine here. I simply let them know I was heading to bed. Again, he asked Sarah. She didn't reply right away, so he inquired, "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" By now he was clearly searching for something. Though I hated this man, I bit my lip. Sarah only nodded at the cop when she at last realized he was addressing her. Clearly unhappy with this, the man began to ask her once more. At which point I interrupt, "If you want to go on a fishing expedition, you might want to do it over there on the lawn where my doorbell camera isn't recording you." By now I had pushed my luck with this man one too many times, but what could I do? I believe I was most likely around 30 seconds from having the cuffs slapped on me until his teammate arrived and essentially drew him away. Presumably in his late 50s, he was an elderly man who most likely didn't want to handle two arrests straight at the start of his shift, particularly given one of them clearly would be more hassle than it would be worth. He most certainly guided him out of it, and they left carrying Evelyn away and hopefully permanently out of my life. By now I'm considering whether or not I want to remain here. My parents reside a few hours away, and considering how poor I will be in the near future, ruled out either their apartment or a hotel, so I just chose to sleep in the guest room. I told Sarah we would talk tomorrow, that I was sleepy and didn't want to be bothered. She made some fruitless attempts to persuade me to interact with her in conversation or sleep in our bed. She let me alone, thankfully, and I crashed harder than I had in years. Which basically puts us up to current with the most recent upgrade. But, dear Reddit friends, let me tell you this. The next day was most certainly the strangest effing day of my life. I first got up at 11 a.m. Sarah had cleaned the house from top to bottom. She was still home. I mean, the floor gleamed, the toilet shone. I could lick the bathroom's linoleum and it would have most likely been minty fresh. She clearly had been busy. But when she noticed me she sort of hovered out of direct range, not exactly interesting but seeming like she wanted to say something. I understand. Last night was horrible for everyone and she was most likely unsure. Did I just call off the wedding right in the middle of things? Was I treating this seriously? Was I genuinely furious? Breathing deeply, I told her we had to stop our conversation. I considered rebuffing her when she tried to seat next to me on the couch, but I didn't. We were not getting married, so I didn't have to act like I disliked her since, honestly, I didn't. Though I was mildly appalled by some of the things I had read in her text interactions with her sister, I was disappointed in her. Yet, we were both hurting here and I didn't want to make it any more complicated than it already was. For Sarah to really and completely believe the wedding was off, I had some more convincing work. She was not responding well, that is, understated. She was absolutely wrecked. She was, I believe, occasionally hyperventilating. Though clearly not only was this my idea, but I had also had more time to come to terms with it. I was keeping it together better. She finally addressed the important question. What about us? People are going to hate me a lot for this, especially the kind of Redditors who believe any transgression in a relationship qualifies for nuking from orbit. One could even argue that my calling off the wedding resembled throwing a Moab over our 6-year marriage. Actually, though, I had no response for Sarah at that very moment. I told her so. I just didn't know. I claimed I read all those text messages and it revealed a side of her I didn't know existed, and that I wasn't sure about her or our relationship anymore. I replied I couldn't understand why she would go along with Evelyn, discounting Marty and participating in, even egging her on, and cheating on not only him but also their daughter too. I know, it was wrong, I know, she said repeatedly. She couldn't offer an explanation when I asked her for one. She merely stated she had to pick her sister and that she got carried away. I told her I considered a good sister to be someone who kept you on the straight and narrow and refused to grant a free pass allowing you to be a douchebag. She agreed with me and claimed she would try better, but Evelyn had always been the boss when they were little and she was always the follower. I get this. I have an older sibling as well, and although I live somewhat more independently, I spent the previous 18 years of my life living on the other side of the earth with him except for the rare trip around Thanksgiving or Christmas. Still, maybe I had a leg up on Sarah since Evelyn was a piece of garbage while my older brother was a great man. Here is where I experienced my second significant effing shock of life in like 48 hours. To me, Sarah adds, it's not fair. It's unfair. What is not fair? I sought her. I got over it since you were sexting that bimbo wife Mandy lady on Instagram last year. Though I was harmed, I overcame it. Why cannot you move past this? Why, huh? Where? What the devil is she talking about? Mandy, the bimbo wife. Is who? Like, I have no effing clue. I questioned her whether she had a psychotic break or was high. Alright, that was harsh of me, but I have not been cybersexing or sexting anyone, particularly not some Instagram girl. At this point, I'm objecting very loudly. Sarah is yelling at me through her tears, saying she saw the letters last year and chose not to confront me since I had stopped. She apparently had been looking at my social media from my house computer while I was at work, which should have been quite dull given I only have family and a few work colleagues on there. She's just calling me a liar and a pervert and all kinds of expletive, so I try to make this case to her, offering to let her log into all my accounts and check for herself. Things are spiraling out of control and she begins throwing objects at me. I warn her that, should she toss one more item, I will have her removed from this house exactly like her sister. She stomps off to the master bedroom and shuts the door, swears at me. At this point, I am so damned perplexed I hardly know what to think. I power up my desktop, head into my office, and Google bimbo wife Mandy. Indeed, there is an Instagram, a Twitter, a Reddit, even OnlyFans. When I click on one of the Instagram links, a picture of a really curvaceous woman, like obviously stretching the boundaries of science and technology, comes up. And no, try to guess her country. Australia. Everyone, keep in mind all the great things I spoke regarding my brother, who was lodging with us last Christmas, all the way from Australia. Guess who I mentioned? Sure, go ahead and use my office computer to play games if you have jet lag. Based on what I know, my brother signed into either Instagram or anything else after his wife and children went to sleep and most likely paid money to sext with this girl. What fantastic effing man you are. Now I would want to contact my brother and not only confirm my suspicions but also give him a goddamn earful. However, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. It will have to wait. I am, however, crawling the walls here trying to figure out my feelings about everything. Everyone really lets me down. Damn, what is this planet coming to? I asked myself. Try as I might, it doesn't really come together for a fleeting instant as I try to link whatever the heck Sarah watched my brother do with what she'd done with Evelyn. She didn't confront me when she saw this. Maybe she's a more forgiving or tolerant person than I am, thus I wish she had. It would have given me a chance to even demonstrate her how I would behave and to straightforwardly explain her my full personal opinion on these matters. I'm not sure whether it would have affected her later on in a positive or negative manner. All I know is that this piece is turning into a novel and I blew off most of the morning when I ought to be getting this out of my thoughts and onto this page. Although I feel better for doing it, there are still most likely 2 to 3 posts to write. I'm not going to upload them to this subreddit longer. I'm not sure they would let me, but I will try to gently update my profile in the next day or 2 with the rest of the blowout, talking to my brother, talking to my parents and Sarah's parents, and last, where Sarah and I stand. One thing I can say though is that for a variety of reasons most of my direct family ties tend to be somewhat strained. Although my parents are mostly encouraging, as the reality of the financial loss sets in, their support is waning. Indeed, the marriage is still off. From the beginning, that was rather almost guaranteed. Sarah's parents seem a little more agitated. I'm sure they are inserting pins and voodoo dolls made right now in my likeness. For those curious, Evelyn is out of jail. She got Sarah to bail her out, and I even slammed on Sarah for that, labeling her her sister's underling, which I believe really resonated with her as she sent me a 20-page letter about how her sister always dominated her over her whole life. Having read it twice, I wish we had discussed this almost anywhere throughout the past 6 years. Perhaps things would be different. Not clear. Anyway, Reddit, if anyone is still interested, expect a last chapter of this tale in a day or two and maybe a follow-up when the former wedding date passes. This update has taken more time to arrive at than I had first planned. Many things have kept me somewhat busy over the past few days. It wasn't until today, when I had some free time following lunch, that I could sit down and get this out. I'll aim to get through as much as I can. But before that, let me mention a few things in response to last post comments. I shall attempt to be succinct. First of all, aside from what I know, Marty is still divorcing her. I know not much else about what is happening with his divorce. Clearly, nothing including paperwork exists, but the purpose is evident. Apart from that, I'm not particularly in a position to be supporting any kind of course of action Marty should follow, provide him legal counsel, or help him in doing anything to the other man or tracking out the other man's wife, etc. Growing-ass dude Marty can do with the circumstances whatever he wants. As his friend, my role is only to assist him and provide guidance should he so seek. Second, this is not some kind of guerrilla marketing for an OnlyFans female. If it was, I should have posted it on the initial post, which was seen by nearly 3 million people in first page of Reddit. Given that this post became somewhat famous on Reddit, it's not really surprising that bimbo wife Mandy, another Redditor, happened to be following the narrative and spotted her name. It might have easily been any other of the hundreds and hundreds of girls using Reddit to share their photos. And briefly speaking of Mandy, I have in fact chatted with her. She looks personally really friendly, and she was really extremely helpful in verifying stuff for me. But guys, Mandy is married, clearly quite happily, for almost 2 decades. There are no romance plans here going forward. And honestly, genuinely, her husband must be cool with it. Nevertheless, she is far too much for a simple insurance guy like me to handle. With that all out of the way therefore, on to the update. Last time I wrote, I concluded it believing my brother had chatted with Mandy using my office computer, but it was too late for me to get in touch with him. Among those guys are individuals who, once presented with a challenge, have to be actively working on solutions. This is fantastic for my line of work, but in circumstances like this all I was doing was driving myself crazy. I thus made the decision to inhale deeply, wait till later and go on with what I had to accomplish, leaving everything aside. First thing first was trying to get every person from my side who I had invited to the wedding notified of its cancellation. As you may remember, I had previously told my parents and had them call my relatives on the day I made up my mind. Only Sarah and I know the full guest list, thus I had to do the rest alone. Respect for my friends drove me to choose to call rather than text, but this might have been a bad choice since every phone call usually led to a very long justification of why I was postponing the wedding. Though I could have offered some other explanation, I wanted people to know that I wasn't being lazy or perhaps having cold feet, something inane. Not just for my personal reputation, but also in order to honor the people who had pledged to demonstrate support for Sarah and me that day. This meant it was now dawn time in Australia since I just managed to get in with everyone late in the evening. Though I knew what I had to do, I wanted to be sure my ducks were all in line, so I paused in the kitchen to make a sandwich. Sarah wasn't home, I noted. When she departed and settled down to eat and consider what to do about my brother's predicament, I had no idea. For simplicity here, let's name my brother Carl. Carl and I have always been really close even though he is 13 years older than me. In my life, he was this kind of quasi-parental agent as he was already well on his way to become an adult by the time I could have long-term memory. He was always kind with his time, played with his younger brother when other teenagers would most likely have avoided such an activity like the plague, and generally seemed to me growing up to be rather mature and wise. Simply said, I really respected him. I was still getting used to the concept that he had been sexting a female not his wife in my house, and I had to make decisions. Talking to him about it was clear-cut, but at this point I didn't know if I cared about having him confess only to clear my name considering how shoddy my relationship with Sarah was. Anything may be saved though? For minimum propriety at least, I had to holler at him about this and persuade him to stop. I wasn't sure though, if I should tell my sister-in-law about it or not rat him out. Everything rested on what he said me and whether or not I trusted him. After eating, I got onto Facebook and video phoned Carl. Carl is nearly always available during the day and now works largely from home as a remote office worker since his expertise is IT. And today was exactly the same. It hardly rang more than once or twice before his response. We greeted one another, exchanged some niceties, and then I just sort of jumped into it and asked him whether he had been using my computer to sex chat with ladies on the internet when he was visiting me. Carl's expression froze, and he bent over the camera's out-of-frame view, clearly closing his office door. Definitely yes, I did. Ask me why? He asked me. Under my breath, I swore and told Carl Sarah had believed his flirting was me since he used my computer. I told him I wasn't glad to pay the hit for him, and I questioned him straightforwardly whether Karen knew about this or not. He hesitated for a few seconds, stammered over his words, then looked a little ashamed and answered, "No, Karen didn't know. He would want it kept that way." He continued by saying that, mostly in the bedroom department, their relationship had been very difficult since their youngest was born 4 years earlier. Carl had always been a quite reserved guy, particularly in terms of personal details. At least he had always been that way when he was chatting to his much younger baby brother. But this time he merely let it all fall out. Things had been horrible. Karen was always exhausted no matter what he did or how much he helped around the house. He had been bored of being turned down. Eventually, this resulted on issues on his side. Some type of performance anxiety on the few times Karen would actually feel up for some bedroom fun, and things just grew worse from there. Basically, there's no amount of socks picked up, laundry folded, dishes washed, or time spent minding children that would get me laid. It was just not happening, he stated. So I started to spend time in my office at night working. He even used the finger quotes to convey this. Apparently, his working at night became a quite strong addiction to OnlyFans sites, which swiftly spiraled out of hand given the relative privacy he enjoyed at his office for legitimate work. When I asked him whether he was still doing it, he swore up and down saying he wasn't. When he said it, I thought I believed him. He seemed to be honest, but I just got this niggling sensation in the back of my mind that something was wrong. Perhaps it was because of all the dishonesty I experienced lately, but I was questioning my own brother, who has been a stand-up person to me our entire life. Being in this state truly disgusted me. The challenge I now encountered here was somewhat sophisticated. First, I would have to have my brother inform Sarah that it was him all along if I wanted my name cleared. But if he did that, then there was no assurance Sarah wouldn't angrily tell Karen. Though at the same time I didn't know if I felt comfortable perhaps throwing a nuclear on my brother's marriage over something he not only stated he stopped. Personally, I thought it would be better if Karen knew. This sort of moral gray area is what I find. Though I didn't know exactly what to do, I urged him to notify his wife about this and start marriage counseling. They had been coming for the past 6 months, he added, and while it was beneficial, receiving a prescription for some generic Viagra had truly helped him. I really spit-took at that, carefully misting my computer screen with water. He told me they had been attempting to schedule at least a couple of times a week intimate time, and the Viagra had helped him overcome performance anxiety to the point where now they were both looking forward to time with each other after the kids went to bed. Everything was basically, "Hey, this is actually going in the right direction now, please don't screw this up for us." Not only for the benefit of Carl and Karen, but also for my 2 nieces. I truly did not want to be in this position. And if what Carl was telling me was the truth, I could be hurling a firebomb into a relationship that was beginning to heal. It was uncertain what would happen. Indeed, some people would find it disappointing, but at the moment I felt waiting and seeing was the best choice I had. After all, I was going to see him in a few weeks in person, and once I got him alone in a room and a few beers into him, I was going to most certainly find the truth of this. Still, it appeared to be the best line of action any. I got in early that evening. I saw Sarah just the following morning. She seemed sloppish, as though she slept very little. Mostly out of habit after all, we had been together for almost 6 years. I asked her where she had been. She informed me she had drove Evelyn to her parents' place and stayed overnight following her down to the courthouse for her arraignment to post bail. She brought up how terrible it was to have to inform her parents I had called off the wedding. She shouted, "Of course they do," when I asked her if her parents knew the cause. Though by now I was losing it, I attempted to keep cool. Bit back at her. Are you going to move back there so that they have both girls at home now? Though it was small and insignificant, her bail of Evelyn from jail infuriated me to no end. She urged, you don't need to be an ass about this. And I responded, and you don't need to be Evelyn's FC King underling. When I told Sarah that, I could see her clearly withering. Clearly it had connected with people. Her eyes began to tear at the corners, and I tempered my temper. We basically stood miles apart in our house's living room and said nothing for a good solid minute or two before Sarah decided to keep on chatting. Our parents are coming here at 3. I really face-palmed at this. Just my own ego? I was about to leave on her without consulting her on this. After all, I did have to meet down with them and hash out the specifics of the wedding and whatever remaining deposit we had, and at least once personally explain to everyone why it wasn't happening. Good, let's do this and clear things out. I tried to keep busy, but on a Sunday there isn't much you can do but waste time. Time wasting isn't very fun when you know you're going into the meat grinder in a few hours. Still, 3 p.m. arrived, as did our parents. Just 1 month after we closed the house, we all gathered around the big kitchen table Sarah had purchased. She loved it even though it was secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, as it was solid oak with a lovely finish and fit for seats. She always wanted to have large dinner gatherings with our family over, just not like this. The next 3 hours were tortuous. Nobody should have been happy. None of them were. Unsurprisingly, my own parents were the best source of support I could find. Yet even that was limited, basically in line with, well, it's his decision to make, which more or less implies, yeah, we think this is crazy too, but we're still backing him. To be honest, that was great with me. The stigma by connection of calling off the wedding did not need my parents to be obtained. With embracing it, I was good. We finally worked out a reasonable agreement on the wedding. We would try to retrieve whatever money we could, divide it back, and then eat whatever losses there were shared together. When it came to the house, though, Sarah fiercely disagreed with my suggestion of reimbursing her or her parents the deposit. She basically intended not to move. As you can guess, Sarah and I hadn't really discussed the SRS, same-sex relationship status, living together scenario in too great depth. She was startled when I even mentioned clearing the house equity, since the message here is that I expect her to leave our house. She had a fit. I have no guilt about it. Before attempting to work with her parents on a payment schedule, I should have resolved our relationship status with her first. It definitely indicated to everyone how I felt about our relationship. And Sarah was beside herself. Even if I believe our parents expected it, or at least understood. She made it plain. I am not moving out of my house, and we are not breaking up, she said, clearly rejecting our splitting over this. And that's essentially how my Sunday night came to finish. Sarah and I tried to talk it out some more once our parents left, but we kept circling each other and I had to restrain my natural inclination to run her down until we found a solution. I wanted to switch off my thoughts since, truthfully, I was also rather exhausted. Unbelievably, we ended up just sitting on the couch watching a movie together until it was time to turn in for the night. We left it there with a, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, and headed to our respective rooms. Monday morning I woke up to a sizable handwritten note shoved under the door from Sarah. I thought I would deal with it later after glancing quickly at the first few pages and headed to work. Sarah still laid in bed when I left. She had to have written that letter late. I started phoning suppliers and venues on my list at the office and set some appointments. It produced mixed bag of outcomes. Under the pretext that I had ordered most of the food, the catering crew insisted that I pay most of their rates. Over here, I shot back at them like, were they expecting me to eat a week-old steak? But my request went unheard. I tried explaining what happened to the woman running the catering company, but it appeared to further strengthen her will to extract as much money from me. By contrast, the DJ I engaged for the entertainment was quite friendly and returned practically all the money. Events proceeded as follows. And during the day, between calls and working, I perused Sarah's letter. This is 20 pages of written work now, hence I will just summarize. The essence of it was that Evelyn has bullied Sarah from infancy onward. Sarah's approach of handling this was to basically follow anything Evelyn wanted to hear. She continued, saying that she was simply terrified and that her life now operated in a kind of generic manner. fear to upset the balance, create a disturbance, or occasionally even express a viewpoint. I considered this as, honestly, when I look back at our relationship with a more critical eye, I kind of feel that Sarah was a somewhat too perfect of a girlfriend. She never disagreed with me, never chose her plans over mine, or even fairly argued too forcefully against anything I wanted to undertake. She deliberately tried to be helpful and, generally speaking, behaved more or less like a yes-woman in our marriage. Until now, we had never even so much as had a mild debate in 6 years, let alone a full-fledged fight. From a relationship's position, everything sounds fantastic. Until naturally, it isn't. You know, what they call people-pleasing behavior. That is, this deep-seated insecurity and drive to make others happy. When I start looking at it this way, a lot of things make sense to me, and I start to realize that despite being with Sarah for 6 years, I really don't know her that well. She seems to have presented this picture all around her, which is essentially a mirror reflecting whatever she believes others desire. In terms of our relationship, she has essentially been playing the ideal girlfriend but never actually letting me inside to see her personally. Hell, it's probably certainly simply another reflection, this time of Evelyn and all her warts and faults. Therefore, what I saw in those text conversations is not even the actual Sarah. This sounds strange, but it's as if we are in an unequal relationship whereby perhaps she loves me for who I am and how I present my ideas on my face and my heart on my sleeve. Perhaps, though, I love her just for the mirror she is pointing up to my face. I'm right there as well. However, I'm not sure if this sounds too metaphysical for you. I'm still attempting to grab by my fingertips this wisp of an idea. The letter Sarah sent me was the first actual insight into her upbringing that I had seen. All I know is that in the past few days, I have most likely learned more about her than I have in the past 6 years. That evening, we continued our conversation, more especially regarding her behavior and background. Our final decision was that she requires assistance. Too afraid to offend anyone lest she face her sister's fury, her parents' censure, or the loss of love from the one she loves, she is a grown woman who is sadly trapped acting like a child. This is not how a relationship should be, so I can say that I feel far more confident and sure that my call off of the wedding was the right one. Actually, it may not be any more accurate. After our conversation that evening, I went to bed far less tense than I had in a few days. I couldn't locate more, hence the story most likely finishes here. Thus remarked Pepe if you watch this long-ass video. Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong, yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week. You are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment. Hence, I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. "Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it." What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating, and I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate. Hence, if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, this is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news. My credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be canceled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard. But then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done, and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted, though, that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the "but their family" justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place, and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices. My mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally. My girlfriend of 10 years left me after getting pregnant with my younger brother. Now, 6 years later, a terrible event has unfolded. For the past 6 years, I, 32M, have been living apart from my family following a terrible tragedy that split our family. I will try to precisely convey the complete scenario. 6 years ago, I was with Rebecca, my high school sweetheart, also 32. Since we were 16, we had been together. At 26, we were getting married. Everything appeared ideal, and beginning our life together excited me. Rebecca first crossed my path in our high school biology class when we were both 16. As lab colleagues, her brilliance and sense of humor immediately appealed to me. I saved weeks' worth of money for our first date to drive her to a decent local restaurant. I knocked over my water glass in great anxiety, but Rebecca laughed and helped me to clean it. I knew then she was unique. I sought to make every moment with Rebecca unforgettable during high school. I shocked her with a scavenger hunt across town for her 17th birthday, placing hints at all our favorite sites. Her last hint brought her to our neighborhood park, where I had laid together a picnic with her favorite dishes. I will never forget how brilliantly her eyes lighted when she saw it. I was resolved to make our long-distance relationship work when we started different colleges. Whether or not I had homework, every weekend I would drive 3 hours to see her. During test weeks, I would deliver her care packages loaded with her preferred treats, stress-relieving tools, and handwritten letters of encouragement. I worked additional shifts at my job after graduation, when we both returned to our hometown, to save for a dream trip for us. Rebecca had always wanted to travel 2 weeks to Europe, so I surprised her with that. We saw London, Paris, and Rome. I booked a private boat trip on the Seine River during the Paris sunset. With the Eiffel Tower gleaming behind her, I can still see her looking so gorgeous. I totally backed Rebecca when she said she wanted to return to school for her master's degree. I started a second job to cover living expenses and her education. Though I had to get up early for work the next day, I would remain late with her, testing her for exams and correcting her papers. I meant to recreate our first date for our 10th anniversary. I set aside the same table at the same restaurant, dressed similarly, and even planned with the waiter to unintentionally drop my water. Saying it was perfect, Rebecca laughed so hard. I proposed under the stars and took her to the beach following dinner so we could kiss first. Looking back now, considering all these memories hurts. Driven by my heart and soul, I really felt we were creating a life together. Knowing how much I loved her and how quickly she seemed to toss all aside makes the treachery burn much more. Rebecca came to me with startling news a few days before our wedding. She reported she was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. She had long been cheating on me with William, my younger brother. She was sure the baby was his. She had done the arithmetic. Though I was devastated and angry, what hurt even more was Rebecca telling me she had emotions for William and wanted to wed him instead of me. My entire life seemed to be collapsing all around me. Angry and hurt, I went to tell my parents everything. Though I anticipated them to be as startled and disturbed as I was, to my surprise they appeared strangely cool about the whole matter. William was always considered by my parents as their golden kid. Hence, I never expected this degree of treachery. I should be glad for my brother, they advised. Even more thrilled about being a grandma, my mother totally ignored how I would feel about the circumstances. What I was hearing stunned me. It felt as though in a moment my whole family had turned against me. The individuals meant to be supporting and loving me were advising me to simply accept this great betrayal and pretend as though everything was normal. Unable to handle the treachery from not just Rebecca and William but also my parents, I had to make the tough choice to leave. I packed, relocated to another city, and cut off all communication with each of them. 6 years ago is when that was. My father phoned me a few times throughout all that year, but those exchanges were always tense and awkward. William, my mother, and Rebecca never contacted me at all. Not even knowing the name of William's child, my own nephew. As best I could, I tried to move forward with my life. Though I struggled to trust after what occurred with Rebecca, I concentrated on my profession, established new acquaintances, and even began dating once more. Still, I was gradually reconstructing my life away from the suffering and betrayal of my past. Then a few days ago, out of the blue, my mother called me urgently. Her name on my phone screen astonished me given all this time. She seemed angry when I responded and said William had suffered a horrible accident. Now he was paralyzed and helpless of working or looking after his family. Hearing this news set me in a range of feelings. Hearing about William's accident surprised and depressed me. Even with all that happened, he remained my brother. But another side of me felt enraged that this was the reason my mother was suddenly getting in touch after 6 years of no contact. Her words next infuriated me even more. She informed me the family needed me. She specifically wanted me to return and act as William's child's father figure, supporting Rebecca in running the family while William healed. I got enraged. How could she possibly believe this was a reasonable request after all that had happened? I told her quite definitely not. She and my father had decided to back Rebecca and William over me, and I reminded her that they had betrayed me in the worst sense imaginable. I claimed I had no obligation to assist them now, particularly after years of no communication. My mother became agitated and charged me with being self-serving. She advised family always comes first, and I had to let the past go, saying William's child required a father figure and that Rebecca was having trouble juggling everything on her own. She tried to guilt me. I stayed grounded and turned down once again. 6 years ago, William and Rebecca made their decision. Today they had to live with the results. I said it was not my duty to intervene and pretend to be content families just because their circumstances had become challenging. I advised my mother not to get in touch with me again unless it was to apologize for how they had treated me 6 years ago before we hung up. If they admitted how deeply they had wounded me, I indicated I might be ready to re-establish a relationship with them. But I would never replace William as a father figure for his child. I had a range of feelings once the call finished. Though a bigger part of me felt furious and damaged once more, part of me felt guilty for turning my back on my family when they needed aid. Now wrenched open, the wound that had begun to heal sent all the suffering and treachery roaring back. Since the call, I have been debating this choice constantly. One hand, I feel awful for the child growing up without a completely present father. William's accident is not his child's fault. On the other hand, since they betrayed me and then neglected me for years, I don't think it fair for my family to expect me to fly in and mend everything. Some of my pals believe I'm right in my choice. They claim my family made their bed and now they have to lie in it. Others, however, believe I'm being too severe and should at least give helping some thought for the child's sake. About what to do, I'm split. Some of me wants to keep the life I have created free from the drama and suffering of my past. Another side questions whether I'm being too stubborn and if there is any way I could assist without entirely compromising my own welfare. Reddit, is I right in not helping my brother and his family after he snatched my fiancée and got her pregnant? Edit. Whoa, thanks all for your comments and viewpoints. I want to offer some extra background and touch on a few shared themes. Regarding those curious about my dating life, yes, I have dated Rebecca, but I have not had any committed long-term partnerships. My capacity to trust suffered most from the betrayal. I have been working on it in therapy. Many have wanted to know whether I am certain the child is William's. To be honest, I'm not sure precisely. Rebecca claimed at the time she was certain based on the timing, but I never found any evidence either way. She decided to leave me for William, hence personally the paternity doesn't alter much. I'm thinking about folks who believe I ought at least see William in the hospital. Though I'm not ready to pardon him, I would like additional information about his situation and outlook. A few remarks noted the possibilities of financial assistance apart from direct engagement. I hadn't given this any thought before, but it could be interesting. For those intrigued about my father's calls over the years, they were essentially surface-level exchanges. The relationship stayed tense since he never admitted the damage done or apologized. A few inquired about other family members. Though they reside in separate states and weren't closely involved in the matter, I have a few relatives I still contact. Though most people feel I owe them nothing, assisting might offer me peace. I will give this viewpoint considerable thought. I value it. I appreciate it all once more. Reading your remarks has helped me to consider the complicated and emotionally charged circumstances that exist here. I'll let you know should any noteworthy changes occur. Update. My last post was a couple weeks ago, and a lot has happened. I wanted to let you know how things stand. My parents persisted even if my first response to aid was negative. Almost every day my mother phoned. Even my father started getting in touch more regularly. Telling me how much William and his family needed my support, they kept urging me to change my mind. I first disregarded most of their calls and texts, but after weeks of nonstop correspondence, I became tired. Though I was still enraged over all that had transpired, a tiny bit of me was fascinated about William's situation. At last, following almost 3 weeks of this, I made the decision to pay William a visit in the hospital. I reminded myself that was only to find out how severe his illness truly was, not because I was thinking of volunteering. My tummy knotted when I got to the hospital. After not seeing any of my family members personally for 6 years, I wasn't sure how I would respond. William was laying in the hospital bed as I arrived into his room. He appeared pallid and skinny, linked to several devices. To find my once active younger brother in this situation shocked me. My parents as well. With more gray hair and wrinkles, they seemed older than I had recalled. They hurried over to hug me when they found me, but I pulled back. Not yet was I ready for that degree of closeness. Then I turned to see Rebecca. Tired and concerned, she was standing beside William's bed. Our eyes locked and I started to flood in recollections. I thought back to all the times I had totally trusted her, all the future we had arranged together. I considered how she had been my confidant, best friend, the one I imagined I would spend my life with. Then I thought of how readily she had thrown all of it away. How she had betrayed me in the worst imaginable manner with my own brother. Seeing Rebecca once more after all these years caused all the suffering and resentment I had tried so hard to overcome. I had to fight the want to turn back and leave the hospital straight out. I avoided talking with Rebecca. Rather, I probed my father about William's situation. William had sustained a spinal cord injury in an automobile accident, he said. From the waist down, he was paralyzed and would require long-term rehabilitation. The doctors doubted if he would ever walk once more. My dad remarked something that surprised me as we were chatting. Soon after the child was born, he said, they conducted a paternity test to verify William's indeed fatherhood. I had no knowledge of this test, thus it seemed as a last validation of their treachery. A small child of around 5 or 6 entered the room during our conversation. This has to be my nephew William and Rebecca's son, I realized. The lad seemed perplexed and perhaps afraid of all the medical machinery. Rebecca first brought him to me as his uncle. Mostly just saying hello and asking him about his favorite toys and games, I spent a few minutes with the youngster. Meeting this child who was biologically my nephew but whom I had never known existed felt odd. My mother demanded that I visit their place to further discuss until lately following the hospital visit. I grudgingly agreed, partly to get this whole matter over with. My mother started a sermon at the house on family responsibility and how I should have been stepping forward to assist Rebecca and the child while William was healing. She expressed Rebecca's overwhelm in having to raise a kid, take care of William, and run their house alone. Listening to her, my resentment started to grow. When she stopped at last, I told her precisely how I felt. Like she usually had, she was acting selfishly and solely thinking about William. She had not once asked how I was doing or shown any interest in my life over the past 6 years. I pointed out in all her calls and during this entire chat. She seemed to have come out to me solely because she needed something from me, not because she really cared about mending our friendship. Even after William had deceived her so terribly, I stated it stung that she appeared more worried about his welfare than she ever had about mine. Saying that of course she loved me, my mother tried to defend herself, pointing out that William's position was an emergency. She stated, I had a duty to help, as the healthy brother. I inhaled deeply and told her my ultimate choice. I responded that although I could not give up my own life and peace of mind to assist William's family, I felt pity for his situation and for the difficulties they were confronting. I said I wasn't ready to give up all of the years I had been constructing a new life for myself, working over the trauma and betrayal they had given me. I told her I might be ready to see them once more in the future, but only if they were ready to own how much they had offended me and begin to re-establish trust. I made it plain that this connection would not call for my filling in for William or serving as a father figure for his son. My choices infuriated my parents. They said I was forsaking my family when they most needed me, that I was selfish, but I insisted. 6 years ago they supported William and Rebecca above me, therefore making their choices. Now they had to deal with the results of that choice. I informed them before I went that, while I was open to remaining in touch and maybe working on our connection over time, only if they could respect my limits and show real interest in my life, not simply what I could do for them. That evening's drive home brought a range of feelings. Particularly considering William's sons growing up with a crippled father, part of me felt bad for not assisting more. Still, more of me felt relieved. At last I had spoken up for myself and established reasonable limits with my family. I came to see that although family relations are vital, they do not grant anyone permission to mistreat you or exploit you. Years of mending from their treachery had gone, and I wouldn't be ready to relive those scars just because they suddenly felt they needed me. My parents have phoned a few times in the weeks following that trip. Though the talks have been strained, they seem to be trying to probe my life rather than merely discuss William. Though it's a little step, it offers me hope that perhaps our connection will develop in a better shape with time. Right now, I'm mostly concerned with my own life and welfare. Reconnecting with my family has brought up emotions that I have begun seeing a therapist again to work through. I'm also putting myself into my work and hanging out with buddies who have helped me through all of this. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my family, I am sure I made the best choice for me. Though only on my terms and at a speed I'm comfortable with, I am open to gently restoring our relationship. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during these trying circumstances. Though I feel like I at last found some closure, it has been a difficult few weeks. I am ready to go forward with my life. My mom abandoned me, and my cruel stepdad kicked me out. Years later, they're back begging for help, and I told them this. For the past 5 years, I, an 18-year-old man, have lived with my mother and stepdad. My life changed dramatically when at 10, my biological dad died in a vehicle accident. For my mom as much as for me, it was a trying period. For a few years, we battled both financially and emotionally until my mom met Mark when I was 12. They spent a year dating before getting married when I was 13. Mark clearly didn't like me right from the start. He always saw me as a burden and a continual reminder of my mother's previous relationship. That day they were wedded to me. I noticed Mark staring coldly, calculatedly while everyone was celebrating. Though I dismissed it as simply wedding day nerves, it made me shudder. Growing up, I made every effort to fit in with Mark. Along with maintaining my grades and helping him with yard work or watching football, activities he liked, I worked around the house. Still, it never was sufficient whatever I did. He would always find means to denigrate me or make me unwelcome. Mark would criticize me for not being his actual son or for simply squandering room in his house. If it were up to me, you would be out on the street where you belong, he would say, or, you're lucky your mother loves you because no one else would put up with a useless kid like you. Though they hurt, I tried not to let them define me. When she saw these exchanges, my mother would try to referee, but she usually sided with Mark to diffuse conflict. She might remark, he doesn't mean it that way, or you need to try harder to get along with Mark. In my own house, I felt as though I was continually treading on eggshells. As I aged, things grew worse. Mark insisted on my paying rent when I reached 16 and started working part-time at a nearby grocery store. Though she felt it was a little harsh, my mother agreed it would teach me responsibility. So a good amount of my little pay went to Mark every month, leaving me nothing to save or spend on myself. My mother recently landed an incredible job overseas. She could possibly acquire a permanent job from a 6-month contract she was presented with in Europe. I could see the thrill in her eyes when she initially told me about it. I had not seen her genuinely delighted about something in years. But worries about living alone with Mark soon eclipsed my delight for her. I told my mother about how Mark treated me when she was away, therefore expressing my worries. I related stories of events when he would accidentally ruin items I cared about, such as the model airplane my dad and I created together before he passed away, or how he would forget to buy groceries I could eat knowing I had dietary restrictions. My mother dismissed it, saying Mark was merely tough and I was exaggerating. She advised me to give him an opportunity and that living together might strengthen our relationship. That day my mother left was among the toughest of my life. I hugged her tightly while we stood at the airport, stifling tears. Though I wanted her to stay, to not be left with Mark alone, I couldn't bring myself to slow her down. Mark laid his hand on my shoulder as she passed the security checkpoint. Though his hold was agonizing, to anyone observing it would have looked like a consoling action. His voice chilly, he continued, "Let's go home, boy. Things are going to be different now." And they were different as well. Things plummeted from the time we arrived home. Mark started screaming at me for the most minor transgressions. Should I leave a dish in the sink or arrive home 5 minutes later than usual, he would yell. Once on my way to school, I unintentionally left a light on in my room. Mark had taken out every light bulb from my room when I returned. "You don't deserve to have any if you can't remember to turn off the lights," he remarked, grinning. Saying he was merely letting me stay because of my mother, he threatened to kick me out several times. "One incorrect move," he would counsel, "and you'll be out on the street. And who do you suppose your mother will find credible? Me, her devoted husband, or her unappreciative kid brat?" Though I tried to keep my head down and avoid confrontation, it was getting intolerable. My mental health was failing and I couldn't concentrate on my academics. I was depressed and concerned all the time as my grades began to slide. Several times I called my mother to let her know what was occurring, but she always appeared preoccupied and advised me to sort it out with Mark. Her voice sounded stressed about her new employment, and I didn't want to aggravate her problems. About 2 months into my mother's absence, one evening things got out of control. Covering a sick colleague, I had been working late at my job. When I got home late, I contacted Mark to let him know. But when I got there, he was waiting for me, enraged. He accused me of lying, of doing drugs or running afoul of the law. He labeled me useless and declared he was bored with having me around when I tried to explain. Driven by a flash of wrath, he seized a box containing old pictures, my dad's watch, and school keepsakes and threatened to toss them. I begged him to stop, and in the struggle the box dropped and its contents spilled over the floor. Mark topped me as I hurried to gather my things. "This ends now," he snarled. "I will throw you out myself. I want you out of my house by tomorrow." That was the final straw. I knew I couldn't stand it anymore. I packed a bag with basics and departed in the middle of the night once Mark turned in for sleep. After a few days of crashing at my best friend's house, I discovered a small room to rent using part-time job savings. I didn't notify my mother right away since I wanted to spare her from stress and compromise her employment possibility. When she returned, I reasoned I would explain everything. Mark began sending me frightening notes that he would phone the police and report me as a runaway should I not return, so I blocked his number. 1 month now, and I'm getting by on my own. It's not easy. I'm trying to keep up with school while working extra hours to pay for basic needs including rent. Though I hardly eat some days, it's still better than living under Mark's roof. Though I feel bad about leaving without telling my mother, I also feel as though I had little option. Stress and continual fear were breaking me. So Reddit, am I the moron for leaving the house of my stepfather while my mother was overseas? Should I have pushed more to make things work? Should I get in touch with my mother right now and clarify everything? I'm lost and would much benefit from any guidance. Edit. I appreciate your replies, everybody. Having perused them, I value your help. Many of you have inquired about my housing circumstances and future intentions. I came into a modest studio apartment through a buddy of a friend right now. Though I can hear every movement my neighbors make and the plumbing is erratic, it's safe and reasonably priced. To pay for things, I'm part-time instructing online and working at a nearby diner. Regarding education, I am in my senior year and set to graduate. My school counselor has been in contact with me on my circumstances and has been quite helpful in ensuring I remain on target. Others of you advised getting in touch with other relatives. Sadly, my grandma died a few years ago and my mom was an only kid. After his death, my dad's side of the family lost contact with us. Hence, for the past few years, Mark, my mother and I basically have been the only ones in touch. When my mother gets back, I'm not sure how to handle things. Though another part of me wants to tell her everything, I am afraid she won't believe me or will start to side with Mark once more. When I visit the bridge, I suppose I'll cross it. Right now, my priorities are finishing school and keeping afloat. Again, thank you everyone for your wise counsel and polite comments. Update 1. After my first post 6 months ago, a lot has happened. I wanted to let everyone know about current affairs. Last week, my mother got back from a work trip overseas. Though I was anxious about meeting her, I also looked forward to at last clarifying all that had happened with Mark. Still, events did not go as I had intended. The day she returned, I got her on the line. Her voice was icy and hostile, not at all the gentle, caring tone I was accustomed to. She insisted on knowing whether it was accurate that I had fled with money taken from Mark. Startled and perplexed, my mind flew to try to figure out where this charge originated. I tried to describe what actually happened. How Mark had been verbally nasty. How he had threatened to kick me out, and how I left for my own safety and mental health. I informed her about the episode involving my box of personal items and about how Mark had made every day she was gone awful. Still, my mother would not pay attention. She insisted nonstop that Mark had shown her proof of my theft. She was evasive when I asked what proof, mentioning missing money and dubious bank activity. I assured her I had never taken anything in my life. It was all falsehoods. She appeared to have her opinion already formed, even though I reminded her of how honest I had always been with her and how hard I had worked at my part-time job to help the house. To enable us to have a face-to-face conversation, I pleaded with her to meet personally. She accepted under some coaxing, but Mark was with her when we met at a neighborhood cafe. My heart dropped the minute I saw him. Though he looked sad, I could see the triumphant gleam in his eyes. Mark presented me with a show of worry and disappointment. He concocted a story about how he had tried his best to look after me while my mom was away, but that I had grown rebellious and begun pilfering money to pay for a party life. He discussed how he had spotted strange withdrawals from their joint account and how he would have noticed cash missing from his wallet. I stumbled. Though he told it so convincingly, every word he spoke was a lie. He even claimed to have fictitious bank records and invoices proving I had been taking money. Though I'm not sure how he made them, they appeared real enough to mislead my mother. He discussed his attempts to approach me about it, but I had fled instead of dealing with the fallout. I tried furiously to explain my side of the narrative and defend myself. I described how I'd been struggling to make ends meet in my tiny apartment and how I'd been working extra shifts to help myself. I mentioned to them the evenings I would have gone to bed hungry as I cannot afford rent as well as food. I begged my mother to remember how I had always been conscientious with money. How I had never given her any cause to question me before. But Mark had obviously been working on my mother for several weeks prior to her comeback. Her belief of me as a troubled, unappreciative child who had seized advantage of her absence was shaped by his poisoning of her against me. He presented himself as the victim, a worried stepfather limited to helping his wayward stepson. Seeing the sight of disappointment and wrath in my mother's eyes was the worst of it. She said she had trusted me to behave while she was away and she couldn't believe I would treat her this way. She accused me of trying to assign blame and fabricating falsehoods about my loving stepfather when I tried to explain about Mark's behavior. Her voice breaking, "How could you do this to us?" she asked. "We gave you everything. This is how you reimburse us?" Her comments ripped right through, each one like a physical blow. Her own son Mark seemed to me incomprehensible as she believed him over me. My mother informed me at the meeting that she wanted time to consider what to do going forward. If she didn't trust me, she stated she cannot have me back in the house. I watched Mark comfort my mother by putting his arm around her shoulders as they exited the eatery. I got queasy looking at it. I kept trying to get in touch with my mother throughout the next few days, hoping she would listen to me free from Mark's influence. She either answered with brief, icy texts instructing me to quit lying and take accountability for my behavior or ignored my calls. I was quite hungry, hoping they may be able to talk some sense into her. I contacted a few of Mom's friends. Alas, it appeared Mark had also gotten to them. They all told me how let down they felt of me. How they couldn't believe I would have stolen from my own household. My mother finally sent me a lengthy text message stating she had decided it would be better if I stayed away from home. She claimed she needed time to get through everything and that she felt rather let down in me. She advised me not to get in touch for a little while. I felt crushed. Along with losing my house, I had lost my mother, the one I considered to be always on my side. Mark had turned her against her own son by totally controlling her. The next several weeks blurted together. Trying to forget the huge void in my life where my family used to be, I pushed myself into work and education. Often lying awake at night, I struggled to fall asleep and found myself wondering what I could have said better to make my mother believe me. I replayed the talks in my mind. My grades began to slide once more, and I ran the danger of not graduating. It took a worried teacher dragging me aside to get me out of my slide back. She questioned what was wrong when she observed my alterations. Hesitantly at first, I told her all. She thought of me surprisingly. She assisted me in contacting a social professional and a school counselor capable of offering me tools and assistance. Their assistance allowed me to get back on track with my academics and even obtain some extra financial aid to cover living expenses. I'm now figuring out my next moves. Working as hard as I can to support myself, I am still in my little flat. I have contacted a few reliable teachers at the institution who have been encouraging and guiding me through independent finishing of high school. About the future, I'm terrified, angry, and wounded. My mother's treachery aches especially, and there are days when the loneliness feels unbearable. But I also want to prove Mark mistaken and show my mother the truth at last. Though I have not given up hope totally, I am not sure if our connection will ever be the same. Right now, I'm mostly planning for college and finishing off high school. Though it won't be simple, I am resolved to lead a better life for myself whether or not my family supports it. I appreciate your support of my original post everywhere. I would really appreciate any guidance on how one might go from here. How might I recover from this betrayal? When I feel so alone, how can I design a life for myself? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 2, 5 years later. My last update 5 years ago, and my life has altered drastically. I wanted to let others know what had happened and obtain some viewpoint on a most recent development. After high school, I threw myself into my education and job. Though I still felt the loss of my family hard, I turned that suffering into will. Majoring in computer science, I secured a scholarship at a state institution. I balanced several part-time jobs to make ends meet. Freelancing web design, working at the university library, and even weekend pizza delivery. Though it was demanding, college also released me. Living with Mark, I felt free from the continual anxiety and terror that had dogged me for the first time in years. To help me through the pain of my past, I began visiting a therapist and befriended people who grew to be like family. After graduating with honors, I found work directly out of college at a bright tech startup. Though I worked long hours and under great pressure, the work was challenging and I loved that challenge. Being appreciated for my work ethic and abilities felt fantastic, something I hadn't lately experienced. I have ascended in the company during the last 3 years. Originally a junior developer, the higher-ups were drawn to my commitment and creative ideas. Within a year, I was elevated to team lead. Lately, I was assigned lead developer for our primary offering. Our startup recently attracted a sizable investment, which sent us into the major tech industry ranks. Along with stock options that might be quite valuable should the business keep expanding, this brought a sizable pay rise for me. For the first time in my life, I am comfortable as well as financially steady. Along with moving into a decent apartment and even beginning to save money for the future, I bought my first car. I never spoke with Mark or my mother during this period. Particularly during holidays and events like my college graduation and career promotions, it was difficult. There were evenings when I would lie awake wondering whether my mother ever considered me, whether she ever regretted choosing Mark above me. But I concentrated on starting a new life for me and assembling a selected family including mentors and close friends. Out of the blue last week, I got a call from an unidentified number. My response caused a hush, then I heard a voice I hadn't heard 5 years ago. Mom was it. Her voice sounded worn out and desperate, nothing like the confident, loving mother I knew from my early years. She informed me Mark and she were having money problems. Mark apparently had some poor investments, and their property was about to go under foreclosure. Mark has been unemployed for the past year since his company he worked for filed for bankruptcy. They were drowning in debt after devouring their savings. My mother said she was sorry for all that had transpired years ago. Her voice broke as she said she had come to see Mark had controlled her over time. She admitted she had been carrying guilt for years and she regretted not trusting me. She asked whether we might get together to try to heal our relationship and to go over things. I froze. I had dreamed of this for years, my mother recognizing the truth and reaching out to re-establish contact. Now that it was occurring though, I experienced a rush of emotions, optimism, resentment, grief, and residual betrayal. After a protracted silence, I decided to see her at a cafe, the same one where we had our confrontation 5 years earlier. It startled me to find Mark and my mother there when I got there. With her grayed hair and worried lined face, my mother seemed older and exhausted. Mark's shoulders dropped and his eyes downcast suggested he had lost the cocky air he formerly possessed. More specifically, they said they were months behind on their mortgage payments and that the bank threatened to seize their residence. When his company closed, Mark lost his career. Even now, he has struggled to find consistent employment. Teacher pay for my mother was insufficient to pay living expenses and debt. I observed as they spoke the dynamic between them had altered. Often breaking off or correcting Mark, my mother looked more forceful. Mark, on the other hand, seemed subdued, a far cry from the dominant man I recalled. The true reason they reached out was to ask whether I might provide them loans to enable them to get back on their feet. Having heard through mutual friends about my achievements in the tech sector, they thought I would be in a position to be of use. Sitting there, I listened to their appeal and experienced a range of feelings. Part of me felt vindicated. Years ago, Mark had lied and exploited the circumstances, and at last they were owning this. Another side of me, though, was resentment at their only outreach when they required something from me. Mom grabbed my hand in hers across the table. Tears in her eyes. "I know we don't deserve your help," she added. "We are desperate even though what we did to you was awful. We have nowhere else to turn." Mark joined in, his voice missing the assurance it had previously possessed. "I know you have every cause to hate me," he continued. "I treated you cruelly. I let everything be poisoned by my insecurity and jealousy. Though I am really sorry for what I did, I am not asking for pardon." Their apologies set off past hurts and memories. I considered the lonely evenings in my small apartment, battling poverty. I recalled the sense of betrayal when my own mother decided to accept a falsehood instead of her son's reality. I told them I needed time to consider it once they had finished speaking and inhaled deeply. I promised nothing when I left the cafe. Their begging gaze trailed after me. I'm divided now. One hand, I have worked hard for my accomplishment and I do not believe I owe them anything based on their treatment of me. Mark's falsehoods ruined my bond with my mother and drove me to fend for myself when young. Part of me wants to turn away and let them deal with the results of their behavior. Still, even with everything, I worry about my mother. Though I worry that if I assist her, I would be exposing myself to more manipulation or demands of continuous support. The idea of her being homeless or struggling hurts my heart. The way this could affect my own financial stability worries me as well. I'm not sure whether I could afford to save them without sacrificing my own future, even if right now I'm doing great. The startup scene is erratic, hence my present success is not sure to last. One more issue is forgiveness. Can I really get beyond what transpired? After such a great betrayal, is it possible to repair a relationship with my mother? And then regarding Mark, can I ever trust him or have him back in my life even as he apologies? Unable to decide, I have been debating these questions for the past week. I discussed it with my closest friends and even mentioned it in a session with my therapist. Though everyone has different ideas, finally they all say the same: it is my decision to make. Part of me is driven to be a great person and offer an olive branch of support. Perhaps this is the first step toward mending past hurts and reconstructing my relationship with my mother. Another side of me, meanwhile, is terrified of subjecting myself to the suffering I have so battled once more. So on Reddit, I find myself wondering once more: am I bad if I refuse to assist my mother and stepdad financially following all that has happened? Should I provide them another chance or guard the life I have created or myself? I could really appreciate some outside view because I find myself at a crossroads. Am I the asshole for refusing to raise my husband's children from his affair now that he and the woman he cheated with have passed away? Sorry for using a new account. I know that's a red flag, but I don't want to risk using my old Reddit account. My 45F husband, 49M, of 23 years has been having an affair with a 20-years-old girl since 2020. I found out this year when his affair partner gave birth to twin boys in March. Obviously, we were going to divorce. We've been hashing things out since. It's been a lengthy process due to some properties in common, and we needed to get an accountant since he used the shared account for his affair. Finally, things seemed to be getting close to the end when both my husband and the woman he cheated with were killed in a car crash. By some miracle, the twin babies were not harmed in the crash. Now they are orphaned and neither set of grandparents can take them in permanently. My husband's parents are both in assisted living, He has no siblings and the only aunt that could take them refuses. She's been child-free her whole life. On the woman's side, I'm not sure the details in full, but her parents are also not able to be involved long-term and the one sister she has lives overseas. Since we were still married and he had not updated his will, all his assets are set to pass to me and our 2 children. I'm not callous enough to leave those babies with nothing, so I agreed to let whoever is their legal guardian to have the remaining balance in the shared account. About $25,000 in savings. The issue is no one wants to take them in. Now my in-laws are pressuring me to take them in and raise them. The issue is, I don't want to. At all. I wouldn't love them and I don't want to be the evil stepmother. But I know a big part of me will always have a level of resentment towards them. I will probably favor my own children. It's not their fault, but I truly loved my husband and I thought we were happy before I found out about the affair. We have 2 daughters, 14 and 16. Obviously we had disagreements, but never insulted each other before. Then I found out about the affair and he began calling me names and blaming me for his cheating. He became abusive and even tried to kick me off the house, my childhood home that is not shared property for the record. I'm also raising teenagers alone now. I don't have the energy to raise babies anymore. My daughters hate their baby brothers. I tried to get them to spend time with their dad as we were divorcing, but they refused. Since this all was found out because of the babies, there wasn't really a way to sugarcoat the situation. And they are also too old to really get away with it. Most of my friends agree it's not my place to care for those children, but my in-laws, the affair woman's parents and my mother want me to raise them. I know my mom is just having grandkids fever, but it hurts to not have her support. I have to make a decision by next week or the boys will be going into foster care. At the moment they are temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. I feel horrible, but I am very sure I can't take them in. Small update. Hey everyone, this blew up far more than I thought, and I appreciate the well wishes for my girls, the boys and myself. Also for the amount of lovely people offering to see about giving the twins a good home. I might not be their mother, but it does touch me and makes me glad there's good people out there. After thinking carefully and speaking to my lawyer, reading responses, doing research, etc., I plan to speak to the grandparents tomorrow and refuse to take legal guardianship of the boys. I will let them know of the usernames of people that offered meetings for private adoptions or fostering, but my daughters are my priority. It'll be up to the twins' grandparents to decide if they'll proceed with adoption, keep them, or turn them to the state. I wish I had the mental capacity to be the person to do this, but I have 2 girls that are going through a lot and they need my full attention. I'll also be talking to the lawyers to figure out if the boys have any inheritance claim properly. If they do, I'll separate it and leave it to the lawyers to do what they need to do for them to have access when it's best. If they don't, I'll find a way to ensure they have access to the $25,000 I was going to give them since the beginning. I won't do more, however. My moral compass might be biased, but I don't believe I'm obligated neither morally or legally to do more than what the word of law says. I can't help everyone and I shouldn't have to. I have 2 girls that lost their father, 2 girls that need therapy, 2 girls just about to get to college. They've gone through enough without seeing their mother favor the children of their father's mistress.